What's up, everyone? Welcome to Norm America's show, a special unadvertised Friday stream. Hope you're all doing fantastic today. I know I am. So we're going to review a debate. Now, a couple caveats here before we get in. One, this will not be the same as the actual debate review show that me and my producer Black Elk are going to be working on and coming up with. That show is going to be looking at 20-minute slices of a debate, and it's probably going to be done not live. So that it's not geared towards, like, here I'll interact with the audience and stuff. That's going to be geared towards more of pre-recorded, edited. Black Elk's going to edit in, slices of the debate. It should be much more professional. And we're doing that because we both want to see if we're capable of being more professional in ways like that. But also because I think that that'll make a debate review show from the perspective of me being a debate judge and coach and former college debater. I think it'll make more sense. So hopefully, ultimately, the shows I like doing the best are live streams, debating people. That's what I like doing best. But I think it'll help to do other types of pre-recorded shows to build up an audience for that. So that's sort of the idea. Secondly, this debate is 2.5 hours. I have not watched 1 second of it, like nothing. Normally, I will at least advance past the intros, but I didn't do that. And the reason for that is I had no intention of streaming today. But my man, Hank, my 4-year-old, he had a rough night sleeping, and we were at a cookout and stuff, and he was so energetic. And I don't know if other people that have kids have experienced this when they're around this age of 4. He'll get to a point where he's so tired he can't sleep, if that makes sense. So you'd be like, logic would tell you, like, oh, this man's running around. He's gonna be exhausted. It's like the first really nice day that we've had where we played outside all day, throwing the ball around, feeding the farm animals, stuff like that. And so it's like, oh, this dude, we're gonna get him home and he's gonna fall right to sleep. Quite the opposite. It was up all night. So I'm predicting that he's gonna be sleeping till at least noon. So I figure we'll stream until at least noon. Because I don't know. And if my wife's smart, she's sleeping right now too. But I have work later today, so I wasn't going to be able to stream this evening. Figured I would do it now. So so that's why we decided to do the stream this morning. So I'm ill prepared as far as I haven't seen anything about this. The only reason I'm reviewing this in the first place is my buddy Aircraft Sparky told me it's worth reviewing. He thought it would be funny. So the last thing I'll say, just a little life business before we get into this debate, is I am starting a 48-hour fast today. So it's going to be water only for me. So hopefully I'll stream tomorrow night as well, if I get some time off the clock at work. And I'll let you know how that 48-hour fast is going. The intent is, I was challenged by a guy. I'll have more details on this tomorrow. But this dude put a video out. He called me out. One of the people that watches me. And he titled the video. He put it on YouTube. It's like calling out Rob Noor. So I clicked it because I'm a sucker. I was like, this dude's going to be like, Rob's take on Ukraine is garbage. But no. He was like, hey, this guy, Rob, I watch him. I like watching him. He has back problems. What you need to do is get on an animal diet and start doing these stretches. So I reached out to him and told him, give me a couple weeks and I will try that. We had to exhaust the groceries that we already had. But yeah, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try 30 days doing an animal diet. I can't say that will start immediately here, but I think that starting off with a 48-hour fast will be all right. So that's the goal. So if you see me tomorrow and I'm like, you know what's going on. We will not get through this full 2.5-hour debate. I could tell you that already. Normally, when I review a debate, I spend 3 times more talking than the debate itself. So given that, if this is a 2.5-hour debate, that would put us at around 7 hours, and I'm not going to stream for 7 hours today. We're probably only going to stream for 2.5 hours. So there is 0 chance I get through the whole debate, which sucks. It's not fair to the participants in the debate because maybe I say, Admiral Gibbs is crushing Primecayes, and then people are like, yeah, but in the last hour, Primecayes really comes back. So I guess that's a possibility. We'll just do what we can. We'll look at what we're looking at. and go with that. Yeah, that's about it. So let's, for the sake of my editor, if he wants to edit this and cut it all up to look more professional, we'll start here and we'll end all of the, oh, Rob's fasting. Rob was up all night with his kid, blah, blah, blah. So we'll end all that here and we'll just start. We're right approaching the 8-minute mark of the video here tonight. So here we go. Oh, one last thing. I screwed up. Unlike, I will read super chats and that during the review. Normally, when I would review a debate, if it's not going to be live, clearly that won't be the case, because put yourself from the picture of this. If you're scrolling through YouTube and you're not watching live content, what do you want to see? And I think if you're like, oh, here's a dude that reviews debates, you don't want to see him like, hey, what's up, fallen heathen? Overtired is a real thing. Or, bringing up, like, stuff like that. That might not, you know what I mean, look as professional. But we will do that today. So just so there's a knowledge of that. So, all right, here we go. All right, my name's Rob Knorr. Why should you listen to me review a debate? I debated for 4.5 years in college at a state university in Pennsylvania called Clarion University. I did NDT CETA policy debate. So that's the debate style that you may have seen videos of online, where people talk like auctioneers very fast. There's no divisions in debate as far as, certain schools are D1, D2. So we debated all of the best schools in the country. I qualified for the national debate tournament, which is the top 72 teams in the country, my last year of debate. Then I spent about 4 years coaching and judging debates all around the country. So I have a lot of experience with that. Since then, I do a lot of debates online, which is a vastly different format. But I have a plethora of experience in different types of debate, including at the highest levels collegiately. I enjoy doing debates still to this day, and I enjoy reviewing debates. So in this particular debate, we have Admiral Gibbs and Primecayes, and they're going to be arguing over Doge. I have not looked at any part of this debate, but I can tell you a little of what I know about the people involved. First, it's going to be hosted and moderated by Tim Pool. Tim, as a moderator, tends to get more involved than I would as a moderator, so we'll look out for that and to see if there's a lot of involvement with the moderation. When you're having a 2.5-hour debate like this, though, sometimes the moderator does need to sort of push it along to get to new ground. So that's something we'll look out with the moderation. Gibbs and Primecayes are both people that I think seem like very nice people. I don't think either of them I would put in the top tier of debate skill from my experience, though hopefully I'll be pleasantly surprised. I am a Trump-supporting conservative. I consider myself a populist, libertarian-adjacent conservative, so my views are going to tend to align more with Admiral Gibbs. I plan on doing 2 things with this review. One is talking about which arguments I think are better, and second, like in real life, what I personally think is good for the country, etc. But second, the talent that's going on and the ability that's going on as far as debate strategy goes, and trying to give my best impression of who I think is doing a better job in the debate. We're going to run the debate at 1.25 speed. That's a decision that sometimes irks people. I apologize for that, but I'm very long-winded myself, and so that'll help speed up the debate a little. And we won't get through the entirety of the debate because I'll probably talk a lot over it, but that's what's going on. They don't talk as fast as me, so hopefully the 1.25 speed won't be a problem. If I had to guess, I would say that this will be quite a bombastic debate. Both Gibbs and Primecayes style tends to be more emotion-driven, which is fine. That could be effective at times, but I don't know that it will be hammering down on specific details in sort of a calm way. I think that my prediction is that it'll tend to get pretty bombastic, with probably maybe some yelling and some sort of meandering kind of re-hitting points and things of that nature. So we'll see. But I'm open. Like I said, I haven't watched any of this, so let's do it. Maybe I should at least skip this part.
Oh boy, Doge. Did you guys hear a judge is ordering Donald Trump to rehire a bunch of probationary employees, saying you can't just mass fire people like this? And of course, Democrats are in protest. Liberals are upset. They view this as a very bad thing that Elon Musk is going in, and for nefarious reasons, he is gaining access to data and terminating government regulators. However, on the right, it's largely viewed as the first time anyone has actually tried to shrink the size of government. So how about we just debate that whole thing, and we'll get right to it. We got a couple gentlemen here who want to have that debate. Sir, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Hello, hi. My name is Primecayes, Primecayes. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube, Twitter and all that stuff. So I usually do debate streams, and I'm on the left, and I think Doge is the problem, and excited to talk about it.
Well, all right. Sir, who are you?
My name is Admiral Gibbs. I'm a rancher and business owner in Texas, and I do streaming, political streaming. I host the Debate Championship Series and the Give Me Break podcast on Twitch, YouTube, and everywhere else.
Look at Gibbs' shirt, man. Gibbs is rocking it. Look at that. I know that Gibbs probably didn't choose his seat here, but Gibbs' shirt goes perfectly with the cat background there. Unless Gibbs brought that himself. That would be something, wouldn't it? When I was on Tim Pool's show, I don't recall seeing that painting, but pretty funny. Now, Gibbs and Prime, both nice guys. Like I said, I'll tend to align more with Gibbs in general as far as our political beliefs, but no one's here to hear my fashion comments, so let's go.
And you like Doge.
I'm a big fan, huge fan.
Huge fan. Okay, what's wrong with Doge?
I think Doge undermines our democracy. I think that it's an end run around all the systems that we actually already have in place to do exactly what Doge says it's going to do. And that's a way to avoid responsibility on our lawmakers for all the draconic changes that are going to be made.
Yeah, I mean, Prime here.
Okay, so to start with, obviously I disagree with what Primecayes is saying here, right? Where he says that it's anti-democratic. I would say that the most anti-democratic thing is that we have unelected bureaucrats that really run the system. And we actually had an election where we voted for someone like Donald Trump, who is supposed to be in charge of all of these executive agencies. And so it's more democratic to vote for a guy who then wants to rein in those executive agencies than to vote for a guy that wants to rein them in but is told, nope, you're not allowed. You're not allowed to touch these executive agencies. That's sort of the opposite of democracy. However, strategically, from an argument point of view, this is an argument that anti-Doge people are going to make, and we'll see if he's capable of, I don't want to say capable, that's rude. We'll see if he takes this argument a step further and says, well, the problem is that this money was voted for by Congress, who were elected in a democratic process, which is actually closer to a direct democracy because you're voting for your members of Congress in the House of Representatives every 2 years. And that's supposed to be actually closer to the will of the people. And if Congress voted to spend this money, then it is illegitimate for this money to be cut out. Even given that, right, there's so many problems with that mentality anyways, such as Congress has no idea what they're voting for, and most of the funding they're putting is just discretionary funding, so they're not saying, hey, you have to send $100,000 for trans mice medicine. They just say, like, here, we're earmarking $2 billion for medical research, and then it's up to the executive, which is the boss of the executive, is Donald Trump, to decide how they're going to spend that money. And I think that we'll find that there's no need to absolutely have to spend all of that money down to zero. Instead, it's more of a like, this is the budget that you have, but you don't have to spend the whole budget if you don't want. So even aside from that point, though, aside from the point of like that being the understanding of democracy that he's going to go for, the truth is, if you ask the will of the people, do you want to end waste and fraud? They would say yes. Like, how many people do you think would have voted to send millions of dollars to trans mice? How many people would have voted to spend hundreds of millions of dollars for Arab Sesame Street? So democracy as an idea, which is sort of the will of the people decide. There are various forms that democracy could take in sort of how it plays out in your voting system. You could have direct democracy, representative democracy. But when we say democracy, with the average person, why is democracy good? What are you talking about? It's that the people of the country should have their voice heard. When the establishment says democracy, what they mean is you have all of these people with power, whether it be these different institutions like the FBI, the IRS, the EPA, or the donor class, people like George Soros or Zuckerberg, or, those sorts of people, Bill Gates, and all of these other people that have like people in charge of academic universities. When they say democracy, what they mean is us, all of us, not the people. And that's why you've heard them say many times before, they'll say things like, well, we have to censor people for democracy. But wait a minute, why would you censor the people and say that's good for the people having a voice? Well, it's because they don't mean the same thing by democracy that you mean. And so when I hear Primecayes say democracy, he may claim that he means the voice of the people, but we'll see that he's parroting talking points from people that actually don't care at all. In fact, they're anathema to the voice of the people. They mean the voice and the power of these institutions.
Here will have you believe that like the democracy is threatened by Doge, but the real threat to democracy, in my opinion, is unchecked bureaucracy. It's pretty clear that the Dems have set up a bureaucratic government that is basically just funneling money to all sorts of different places. And I'm a really big fan of Doge. It seems to be peeling back this little nasty onion and letting us see what's underneath, and love it. This is what we voted for, and we're getting what we wanted.
Yeah, well said. Again, I haven't seen this, so yeah, Gibbs nails it. That's the real threat to democracy, the bureaucracy. And hopefully Gibbs nails down further on that and forces Prime to defend that sort of bureaucracy that's really been running things.
So, you mentioned that it's undermining the structures that are already in place that should be dealing with it. What do you view those as?
Simple, right? We had the office of Inspector General, right? We have Government Accountability Office. We have the court system. We have the lawmakers themselves who have oversight. We have oversight committees that do all these things.
Do you think they were working, like they were functioning as intended?
I think they were functioning, but not to the speed that anyone is happy with. I can say that at least.
So I suppose then it's fair to say it wasn't efficient. The system that was that in your, well, I mean,
yeah. I mean, like,
right, what I'm trying to say is we have this position where you're saying it was working, but it wasn't working well enough.
Yeah, but that's any system, right? And like efficiency, if efficiency comes at the cost of democracy, right? If it undermines our ability, our constitution, our system of laws, yeah, that's not acceptable. Like we can improve our processes, right? We can go through, we can improve how responsive Congress is. We can do all these things, but it's hard work. We actually need to do those.
Well, this gentleman over here says he voted.
Okay, so it's not a bad argument that Prime's trying to make, which is first he concedes. So he's making this argument. The status quo already had Doge, basically. We had a bunch of organizations like the Government Accountability Office, LMB, Congressional Oversight, that already was doing the job that Doge is supposedly doing. And obviously, no one with a straight face could say that they were successful in. Yes, we'll see reports that say things like, 200-something billion dollars fraudulently spent in the PPP loans, hundreds of billions of dollars fraudulently going out the window at Social Security, billions of dollars come up missing at the CIA, right? The problem is those organizations have no teeth or no ability or no will to actually do anything about that money that comes up missing. The same with congressional oversight. Congressional oversight's a joke. Like, for example, if you watch Rand Paul the other day, when was it? About a month or now, maybe it was a little longer, but I reviewed this about a month ago. He's talking to a woman from one of the USAID agencies and who's like in charge, and he's asking to get documents about how much funding was given to Gain of Function and Wuhan Lab. And she's like, we've already complied. And he's like, but you haven't sent us anything. You've sent us 0 papers. And she's like, well, we complied with the other bodies that have asked, the other oversight organizations that have asked, or committees that have asked. And Rand Paul's like, no, I'm on that committee as well, and you've sent us nothing. And she's like, well, we've complied with sort of what historically we've been asked to comply with. Right, because what happens is they decide that whatever party's in charge, as long as they're like, yeah, okay, we're not really looking for it, even if a bunch of the members of the minority say, well, we're looking for this stuff, they just say, well, historically, we don't have to send that stuff. So we're historically fitting in with our compliance. And so oversight oftentimes, whether it be through incompetence or because, let's not kid ourselves, a lot of these people in Congress like these pork projects because their donors are personally benefiting from the money being spent, they're not doing anything. So Prime's in a difficult position because he has to argue, well, the status quo is solving this, but admit the status quo is not. So he's like, oh, okay, well, it's inefficient. Well, but that efficiency, that's a clever word to say it's not working. Like if the efficiency is 1%, then yes, that's a grotesque inefficiency to the fact that it's not working. It's not like, oh, they were doing a great job of paring down the size of waste and fraud. They're not. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year. So when the problem is getting bigger and the solution, even if they're cutting small portions into it, it's still the net result is the waste and fraud is getting bigger every year, then clearly something needs to change. He says when it comes at the expense of democracy, then we can't cheer for efficiency. But again, we already talked about the problems with his democratic argument. And secondly, what's to say that the courts don't say that what Trump did is illegal? I think that it's likely the case. Yes, we have a bunch of activist judges all around the country right now that are putting temporary restraining orders, injunctions, etc. But once this gets to the Supreme Court, if the Supreme Court says, yes, this is perfectly legitimate, then what's the argument against Doge? What saying it's anti-democratic, well, not if the courts say it. We've already argued how it's actually not anti-democratic. For example, if you ask the average person, do you think we should be giving hundreds of millions to insert whatever cause? Almost all of them would say no, we don't. They voted for Trump, so in that sense, it's democratic. They knew that Trump was talking about eliminating waste and fraud. They knew that he was going to bring Elon Musk along. So the only argument about democracy that Prime would have would be, well, the courts are saying it's illegitimate. We'll see. Yeah, a bunch of activist courts that are in favor of the status quo and not ending this corruption. But notice how none of this is actually making a practical argument of should this spending be cut. It's just sort of a process argument. I'm not arguing whether or not these cuts are good or bad. I'm just saying the process is anti-democratic, which it's not. But we'll see if he ever gets to argue that these cuts are a bad thing.
For it, though, isn't that democracy?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, when we look at the debt, right, we're what, 36.22 trillion. The national debt is held by the public is 28.9 trillion. I just want to see this. It's clear something's gone wrong, right? You know, Kevin O'Leary was recently on a show and I was watching. He was just talking about how when you do a business, and I do this in my day-to-day life, you go in there, you evaluate what's working, you trim the hedges, and then you expand, right? You don't just keep expanding in perpetuity. And I think that's what's happened with the government. We've had Democratic leadership for 12 of the last 16 years in the presidency, and they've created this monstrous bureaucracy that definitely needs to have the hedges trimmed. And this is what I voted for, and I'm getting exactly what I wanted. I mean, look at USAID being cut, and we find out there's funding all sorts of random stuff all over the world. We're looking at, things here. They argued about, the DEI programs with FFA. Well, year to date, we actually have less plane crashes. I was just looked that up earlier today. I mean, we're going through all these different programs. The Department of Education halved, right off the jump. I mean, big fan. All these things I wanted.
We've actually been going.
Yeah, I mean, Gibbs is right. It's interesting. Like, you hear all these people like, do you have buyer's remorse? From what? This is what I wanted. In fact, this was the central issue that I voted for. I think that all these bureaucracies actually run the government, and that's as anti-democratic as you could get. And not only is it not democratic, most of their agenda is not only ignoring average citizens like me, but it's antithetical. For example, they hate populism. So they're interested in censoring people like me online, just like they are around the world. That's why they're funding NGOs that are then pressuring the EU to go after companies like X to ensure that they have the censorship that our democracy, our bureaucracies, actually want to go after in our own country, but they can't because of the First Amendment. It doesn't stop them from trying. So they're like, well, we'll harm the companies that we can't control anymore overseas by funding NGOs that go overseas and then punish the companies that we want to censor populists back home. They're going after populists in places like Romania. They're going after populists in places like Poland. That's our tax dollars going after the agenda and the political ideology that I happen to have. I'm forced to pay into taxes so that they could attack my ideology in serious ways. And that's not to even speak of the fraud that they're enriching themselves and their allies with. And then things like DEI, trans ideology, etc., that is also antithetical to my beliefs. I'm being forced to pay for that stuff. That is not democratic. And not just me. A majority of the people don't want most of that stuff, and they're being forced to pay for it. So this is exactly what I voted for. In fact, I would argue the only problem I have with Doge, or the big problem I have, is it's not working fast enough. And that Congress isn't going along with it. But yeah, Gibbs is right. I think that he's right that this is what we voted for, and he's right to say, look, the debt's out of control. Something needs to happen.
Going over the airline thing quite a bit, and year to date, it's worse.
Is it? I mean,
Yeah,
I have the wrong data then, but that's
also it is challenging to get the data because if you look at year-over-year data, they'll tell you about general aviation crashes, but that could include like a tug hitting a plane on the ground or something. So then when you track for fatal airline crashes, we have, I think, 3 out of 5 serious disasters so far this year, and usually you get 4 to 6 per year.
Okay.
So we already have, we're way ahead of schedule or of the average so far. I don't know what the reason for that is because I don't think Trump has been in office long enough.
I agree.
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, right. And so we were talking with the Ben, what was it, Ben Davidson? Is that his name? Am I getting his name wrong? The space weather guy. And I'm like, everybody wants to say that it's like DEI. You've got some people on the left, they're saying, oh, it's because Trump came in with Doge and they're gutting the FAA. People on the right are saying it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm like, I don't think DEI would happen for years and then instantly in 1 month cause a bunch of crashes.
right.
And I don't think that Trump got into office and then instantly a bunch of crashes happened simply from him being there. So I feel like we've got an anomaly there. It's hard to track.
Well, to back your point up, I like,
I mean, Tim, fine to address the hey Gibbs. Technically, I think something small you said there is wrong. That's fine to address that point. But it doesn't really have, especially when Prime's conceding. This doesn't really have to do anything with Doge or the cutbacks. It was occurring too quick for these cutbacks to have had any sort of effect, and even Prime agrees with it. So. I hope we don't spend a lot of time on this point that's sort of irrelevant to the greater context of the debate. But fair play for Tim to say, actually, I think something you said is technically wrong.
we know we've had a shortage for aircraft controllers for 2 years now, I believe. I mean, I as like a conservative from Texans, we naturally don't like the government. I was initially hesitant when they said we're going to put Doge in because, hey, what's the slippery slope? It's going to be, another organization wasting my tax dollars. But they've gone in there and they've done a lot of things. And with the FFA, I kind of it wasn't my favorite Trump plan so far. I can be critical of Trump. I think maybe we could have probably got a trained monkey to go in there and watch these things better than nobody. That's better than nothing. I feel like if we have a shortage, it's better to have somebody than nobody.
It's nonsense.
You don't agree? I mean, you could get the janitor to watch a thing.
Well,
that's better than nobody watching it, right?
I would call it absurd, but technically the truth that a trained monkey is better than no one.
Yeah,
but we don't want a trained monkey.
Sure, exactly.
No, it would be better to not have any signals from a control tower than like random signals. Sorry.
Well, no, trained monkeys. You'd be surprised. They put chimps in spaceships and they know when to trigger the boosters and
Yeah,
whatever.
they could go to Sputnik. They can
This is
handle
the
everything.
high-level conversations I came to people to talk about. All right,
They had a dog, right? They had the dog go to space in Russia,
Yeah.
and the dog was trained when the light turns on, it paused the button, and then the things happen.
Okay, fantastic. Oh,
They didn't have-
That's my advocation for
I'll
FFA.
notify Elon on that one. All right, so ignoring that part, right? But so Doge says that it hasn't actually fired, in terms of the FAA, air safety individuals, right? That's not the case. We actually have articles talking about this, like Rolling Stone reporting, that they spoke with an FAA employee who was once among a handful of employees working on an obstacle impact team at the Mike Moroney Aeronautical Center in Oklahoma City. The team evaluates many tens of thousands of potential new hazards, such as new buildings, windmills, and especially cranes, to inform flight procedures each year. That's the person who does safety. And there's another one. A second-term employee whose job was ensuring that pilots are medically able and certified to fly. This person is also cut. And there's many other examples. These are just the ones listed in Rolling Stone.
Well, I suppose the challenge then is this the article that I have pulled up? Is that
FAA, yes, indeed.
Okay, so Prime, the problem with Prime is he already conceded, yeah, I don't think it's Trump's fault. And so now he's saying, well, Trump has fired some of these people. So maybe Prime, it would have been a better strategy to say, well, maybe it's not all directly Trump's fault, but certainly he led to an environment that makes things like this more likely. I think that would have maybe been a better way to go about it. So I'm interested to see if Prime gets called out on this sort of conflicting stances here. But he says that there were at least 2 people that were fired. Look, the truth of the matter is we don't have any understanding of why individuals will be fired if they were good at their job or things of that nature. For example, people could be fired and everyone's going to say, but I was really good at my job and my job was really important. But is that the case? I am willing to admit that there will be people fired that shouldn't be fired, that are a net benefit to society as a whole from having the jobs they have. The problem is, what's the alternative? To never fire anyone? Because everyone that gets fired is going to say, well, I'm really important. And the media, who wants the status quo to continue, is going to say, oh, look, that guy was the best. He was the greatest. His job was the most important ever. And so anything bad, for example, if there is another hurricane that hits, surely somewhere in the government since Trump's been in office, there was someone that was fired from some agency that deals with weather, or someone was fired from FEMA. And they're going to be like, look at this person right here who lost their house. And it's because Trump's administration fired this guy. That's the story they're going to run with. And yes, if you hate Trump, you're going to say, yep, makes sense. But we all know, looking at that from the outside, that's like, but that's not how that works. But anyways, let's see what they come up with here.
Yeah. So it's from February 18th. Well, I mean, I kind of feel like we already went over the point of it may be disconcerting to many people, the points you're making, give you that one, but I don't know right now what the immediate effects of that are.
Oh, no, I agree. We agree. I don't think that at this moment, things have crashed, but things will get more dangerous, right? You fire all these teams, right? There are people, and if you dig through the article, they're talking about how they've been gutted, right? There's still maybe a few of them still there, but they're doing the work of 5 people doing the work of 20. That's not what you want. And before they weren't fully staffed at first as well. And then, of course, right, we have the reporting from that big meeting between Trump and his cabinet members, right? So, and Elon Musk is there, not part of the cabinet. And Elon Musk gets into it with Treasury Secretary Duffy, right? There's a bunch of reporting talking about this, but Duffy says that the Doge team tried to fire air traffic controllers, right? Elon Musk denies that, and then he asked Duffy to name the individuals who got fired. Duffy's like, well, no one got fired because I stopped it, right? But according to him, assuming this is correct, people were in the meeting or reporting back on it. Assuming that's correct, then yes, he did try to fire air traffic controllers.
I mean, yeah, sure. Okay. Like I said, I'm a little critical of that as a conservative. I'm not a huge fan of when there's government overreach. I think the FAA was probably the worst thing that Trump's done so far, like how they've handled it. However, overall, when I look at Doge,
so I think Prime does a good job here, actually. And I think Gibbs drops the ball because there's an answer to what Prime says here. Okay, it sounds like the system's working as intended then, right? The guy that's in charge of shrinking down the size of government makes a bunch of recommendations, and then a guy who knows more about the specifics of it says, whoa, 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 let's not fire these people because they're very important. And then that's what occurs. That's how I would want the system to work. So that sounds good to me. What you don't want is put the shoe on the other foot. What if Duffy has to decide who to fire, but his goal is, well, I'm actually want to keep every employee because I think every employee is better. For example, let's go back to the pandemic. You had a bunch of people that were making decisions about all parts of our lives and government that were only looking at it from one angle. And that was, well, we're looking at it from the sense of virology. Now, if you didn't have to take into consideration people's freedom, their mental well-being, the economy, their relationships, you would say, yeah, sure, lock everyone down for like years. We don't care. If all we're looking at is one metric, which is how do we stop this virus, makes sense. Lock people down. Now, I expect a virologist to do that. I understand. They're looking at it from the perspective of we have one job, how to stop this virus. The problem became that was just accepted as gospel, and you didn't have other people in the room like, yeah, but you can't do that because look what it's going to do to people's mental health. Look what it's going to do to people's freedom. Look what it's going to do to the economy. And that's going to be far worse outcomes. Instead, we just ran with, yeah, Fauci says, let's do. And you can see the disastrous impacts of that. Now, I have other feelings that I won't get into on this stream about exactly what I think about the intent was of lockdowns, trying to control people, trying to lead to transfers of wealth from the poor and working class to the upper class. But nonetheless, just on face value, the idea, I don't blame a virologist for looking at things through the lens of virology. I just want a system set up where there's checks and balances and other people are like, sounds like in this case, that's exactly what happened. We have a crisis, which is the size and corruption and waste and fraud of the federal government and all of this money that's being spent. It's reaching a flipping point. I read, for example, in February, the payments on the interest alone were 2/3 of the amount of taxes that would have been brought in by our federal government in the month of February. That's not sustainable. Drastic action needs to be taken. Prime says, oh, okay, well, the status quo is solving it. It's just not efficient enough. How did we get to it being this bad then? If we continue with the status quo, we are quickly reaching a point of no return. And it won't be me and Gibbs and even Prime or Tim Pool that are the ones holding the bag. It'll be our children. We're dooming future generations. And so something needs to be done now. So I'm perfectly fine with an agency that's saying that is our top priority. And Elon's admitted, we'll make mistakes. We'll cut things that then we'll later understand that we need to put back in place. But that's better than the alternative. If you approach this and say, no, 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 no. Instead, what you should do is take a scalpel and look at every individual decision very closely. You'll paralyze yourself and you'll end up just like the Government Accountability Office, where you never take any action. So let's keep going.
You know, I think it's been wildly successful. I mean, just some of these stats here that the Doge has been putting out. You know, they put, what was it, 11 point? Here we go, 11 point something million like loans went out to children. What's going on with that?
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't check the actual ages.
I'm not saying like, okay, we all know the YouTube kid that like reviews toys and mom and daddy probably have to run his day to day. Sure, that's fine. But why are all these loans going out to children? You know, like these are questions. We look at USA, right, or USAID. They go, so they're sitting here. Well, they literally told them to burn docks. I was watching a Marine the other night, and he goes, "Hey, the only time we burn docks is when the embassies are getting run over by a terrorist organization. Why are we sitting here burning docks? It's pretty clear something nasty is going on."
Wait a minute, hold on. The Trump administration is telling them to burn docks, right? Like just now. Hold on, who? Okay.
USA
who said,
head.
Yeah, USAID head for the Trump administration now.
Yeah, now because he's a leftover, right? They're burning docks, and Doge is trying to go in there looking.
They're doing that under the Trump administration. You're saying this is a rogue employee that's burning documents?
Yeah, that's why they had to put a court order on it to stop it recently.
So you're saying that this individual is not operating under the Trump administration. They're operating like a loyalty to the Biden administration and burning documents right this second.
Yeah, I mean, you know about. I mean, you can pull it up. They're talking about it all over. It's all over the news.
I've heard about this. But like, as far as I know, I mean, this is done under Trump. Like, if they can send marshals to stop this person. If that's
right, yeah, they have a court order out right now trying to stop them.
Do that.
Court asked.
So when it comes to USAID specifically, I've heard both sides of this. I've heard that, yes, they were ordered to burn and destroy all of one of these Biden leftovers, to destroy all of these documents. And that sounds really bad. Mike Benz, who's someone I trust, says some of his sources inside USAID said, actually, this is sort of the normal way things go about. But I have also heard that there are court orders now to stop that. But that's just USAID. We could also see accusations that the Trump administration has made with the FBI doing things like this, the IRS doing things like this. Certainly, it is true that there are leftovers that are trying their best to ensure that access to information is not received by Doge or by the Trump administration in general. That's why you see so many of these court orders, temporary restraining orders that were saying Doge. They even said at one point, even the Secretary of Treasury wasn't allowed to have access to these documents, which was ludicrous, and actually a court ended up overruling. But there is a concerted effort to make sure that there are things that are not found out by the incoming, well, now the current Trump administration.
To intervene after email tells USAID workers to destroy classified documents.
Email.
Let's see. Judge Carl Nichols set a Wednesday morning deadline for the plaintiffs and the government to brief him on the issue. A person familiar said it comes as Trump administration. Yada, yada, yada. Let's see. Lawsuits are mounting. Okay, they don't have the... no, we don't want to donate AP. Thank you for your assistance in clearing out classified USAID headquarters. It begins. I don't think it actually has the name in it.
Yeah.
Erica Carr. There you go.
Erica
Acting
Carr.
Secretary of USAID.
Acting Secretary of USAID. A person that's... I mean, well, we can check it.
I mean, yeah, this is the bureaucracy fighting back against Doge. I mean, are you disagreeing that there's elements of that have loyalty to other different like groups within the thing other than MAGA, like in Trump? Like, I mean, it's pretty clear like that there are different groups that have different.
Well, I'm looking up who Erica Carr is.
Yeah.
Let me ask you though, as it's being pulled up, if you were ordered, if you worked at a government institution, through multiple administrations, and Trump came in and said, "Prime, I want you to burn the documents, get rid of them all," would you do it?
No, I wouldn't.
You see?
Absolutely. Well, I would say this is an illegal act, right? No matter who installed it, it's an illegal act. But the claim here...
Well, Prime has no clue if that's illegal or not, right? I won't make that claim. I don't know. If it's illegal if Trump's requesting it, or if the executive is requesting these documents be preserved and then they're being destroyed. It's illegal if there are laws on the books or policies or regulations saying that these documents are to be preserved. But what if there's the regulations say every 6 months you get rid of all of these documents, and that's what they're doing now? That wouldn't necessarily be illegal. Now, that actually would go to Prime's argument. So I think Prime gives too much away here by conceding this is illegal. I don't think that that's been proven that it's illegal. The argument that Prime would refuse his boss telling you to destroy these documents because he knows it's be illegal, kind of, though, the reason that it's important is it speaks to sort of what so much of these leftist mindsets is, that they just assume that they're right, and therefore they will go against Trump because they assume that he's telling them to do something that's illegal. But he's no evidence of that. And he quickly is like, no, I would say no, Trump, I won't do that. right? The other argument that, and I wish, I understand Tim jumping in here, but I wish they would have allowed Admiral Gibbs' argument more time to ruminate and give Prime a chance to answer, which is, are you really trying to say that there aren't people within this bureaucracy that are fighting back against Trump? Because it seems that Prime's argument here is quite simply, well, this person's an employee under Trump, so therefore any actions they're taking are clearly at the behest of Trump. Now, Tim gets him to concede, yeah, well, not necessarily. You yourself would go against Trump's orders, but I would like to hear Prime answer that.
Here is that specifically it's being done to cover up like the crimes of the Biden administration. I don't believe that. I'm gonna actually ask you for evidence that's happening under their auspices, right? No, it is a suspect, absolutely suspect, and they should be arrested or charged with a crime or whatever.
She is a Joe Biden hire.
Yeah,
Eric Carr was appointed by Biden in January of 2021.
Is she doing it on Biden's orders or anyone else's orders?
Well, we know it's not Biden's orders because they're having an open investigation of the auto pits.
I don't think that has anything to do with what we're talking about.
Well, no, but you're implying there's something like nefarious going on. One, there is, because they shouldn't be bringing the documents in the first place, right? But like that this is the deep state fighting back. So I don't know.
Your words, not mine.
So again, this is interesting, and I think this is I'm glad Prime's making these arguments, because I think this is indicative of so many people that have been so used to defending the establishment. Now, I think the Democratic Party is the face of the establishment, right? But there are certainly Republicans that fit that bill as well. It used to be pick the puppet on the left, pick the puppet on the right. Populism, or having these candidates that sort of the establishment institutions didn't like, is something that sort of started with Ron Paul. I think Bernie Sanders worried them, though Bernie's been a good little boy and gone along with the establishment ever since they screwed him. And then certainly with Donald Trump. It's not that Donald Trump's like this altruistic hero, that he's super moral, that there's nothing that we should criticize him about. To the contrary, I just did a show last week here, 2 hours criticizing, or maybe an hour and a half, criticizing things that I think Trump's been doing. So he's certainly not like some angelic figure that we can't criticize, but he's seen as someone that wasn't in the total control of the status quo bureaucracy, and that they cannot stand. They would be fine with Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton. They don't care. They know that both of those people would go along to get along, and that the status quo bureaucracy that really runs things would continue doing so. But Trump's someone that's like, nah, I want the power. I'm the boss. And they don't like that. And so that's why they fought so bad against him. That's why you had Chuck Schumer say before Trump was even sworn in that Trump can't criticize the FBI. Remember, Trump's in charge of the FBI. It's part of the executive branch. So he is the boss of the FBI. And Chuck Schumer's on national television saying, yes, but Trump can't criticize them or they'll screw him over, which is exactly what they did. They then got illegal FISA warrants to spy on his team. You know the rest of the story, right? Prime is making this argument, though, that's like, well, he admits, yeah, it looks really bad. It looks bad. It looks suspect. And in fact, this woman should be arrested, but prove that Joe Biden ordered it. Their level of proof always goes like this. For example, we could see people at high levels of the FBI putting things out like, we need an insurance policy to stop Donald Trump from winning. We could see them tweeting to their friend or texting to their friends, #resist. And then they do things like change evidence so that they're able to be more likely to get a FISA warrant to spy on Trump. And they go as easy as possible as Hillary Clinton's team during the investigation into her, while going as hard as possible in Trump. And people like Prime will go, okay, sure, the FBI took illegal actions. Okay, the people that were doing it said they wanted insurance policies and #resist against Trump. But prove that that's the reason that they took these illegal actions. It's a standard of proof that is insane. It's like, unless you have a written statement notarized by like 3 people from this person saying, I burned these documents because Joe Biden personally told me to, Primecayes is going to be like, see, nothing to see here. It's no problem. And that's what the American people are tired of. We're tired of this plausible deniability. Well, the standard of proof is that we need video that's notarized with people saying, yes, I'm breaking the law. I'm doing this for illegal reasons. Even if you have them breaking the law and saying we need an insurance policy against Trump, #resist. Nope, that's not enough. Sorry, that's not enough. We don't know. I debated a lawyer recently, his name is Fisco, where we talked specifically about the lawyer for the FBI that changed an email from the CIA saying that Carter Page, this person that worked for Trump, worked for the CIA to help them take down a Russian, and he changed it to he didn't. So he materially changed evidence to the opposite of the truth. Now, this was a guy who had texted his friends, #resist Donald Trump. But the lawyer I was debating said, no. The most likely explanation for why this career FBI agent that knows that it's a crime to alter evidence like this, the reason that he did it was expediency. He just assumed he was correct and that the CIA, imagine what this argument is. The CIA's, you ask the CIA a question. The CIA gives you an answer. You say, nah, I think you're wrong. You don't recontact them. You don't say, are you sure? You just, for no reason at all, assume that they're wrong. So you change the email they sent you, then submit it to the court to further get an FISA warrant against Trump's team. And the reason you did that was it would have taken too long to recontact the CIA. That's the argument that people like Primecayes will make. They'll make these absurd arguments that say, no. We have to have proof beyond any sort of reasonable standard. And so I'm glad that Prime's making this argument. Yeah, it looks fraudulent. Yeah, she should be arrested. It looks suspect. But we don't have any proof it was to protect the previous administration. Well, what do you think? I hope Gibbs says, well, what do you think the most likely explanation is then?
Okay, all right. I don't know what the motivation behind this is, right? So let's investigate that.
Sure. I mean, I'm down for investigation, but isn't that what Doge is supposed to be doing? Investigating? That's their whole job, is to investigate ways to
Yeah.
So let's honest question. Erica Carr was previously worked in the Obama administration and was at the Office of Management and Budget. She was appointed by Joe Biden in 2021. She is now the acting executive secretary of USAID, and she sent an email instructing staff to shred and I believe the email said something to prepare for burn. Like I don't think
it was
they're
like
not burning in the building.
It was like keep shredding, and when the shredders get tired, like use the burn bags, right? Like it's like extremely egregious.
Okay.
And I'm not the
Here's
biggest.
Here's the question. Here's the question. Let's just total honest.
Okay.
What could the possible motivation be for wanting to destroy classified documents?
Well, Tim asked the question, not Gibbs, but yes.
I have no idea. I'm not going to guess at that.
Well, I mean, they're doing it to hide it from Elon coming in and trying to like clean stuff up. It's clearly, nefarious.
But to be fair, there's one potential.
I mean, it's
is there any above board normal reason? I'm asking this honestly.
It's all nefarious. Again, I agree. Completely nefarious. And I'm not.
Again, I think that it's the most likely scenario is that it's to cover up from the incoming administration, the current, from Doge, from the Trump administration. However, there is an explanation. And so Prime's giving away ground here that he doesn't need to. And that explanation could be, yeah, this was backlogged stuff that was supposed to be deleted. And they're trying to start fresh with a new administration. So this is all stuff earmarked for deletion. And she's saying, okay, let's get it done. Doge is all about efficiency, right? So it's not going to be a good look for us if he comes in and says, what's up with this? You have a backlog of all of these materials that legally or through regulations you were supposed to delete and you haven't. That doesn't sound very efficient to me. So it's like people working overtime. Like it would be the equivalent of, you're painters and you're supposed to paint so many walls a day, but you're 1,000 walls behind. Hey, we're sticking around and we're painting all these walls tonight. Same thing. That's what they could argue. Now, I think that that's absurd, that that's not what's going on, right? The fact that we're talking about not the creation of, but the destruction of something, it would seem that there's a very easy explanation that if you're this woman and Doge is coming in, you would say, yeah, well, actually, all of this stuff was earmarked for deletion, but we thought maybe you may want to look at it, so we didn't go around to delete it. I don't think that you're going to be accused of being inefficient by the agency that's working on efficiency. But I think that's something that Prime should be bringing up here instead of just saying, yeah, I don't know, it looks nefarious.
Not defending that at all. I'm saying that but I'm looking at his claim, right? Like it seems like if you're not doing that, then I take back my words, right? If you're not claiming that this is like from the Biden administration, if you're not claiming that they're acting on orders I don't think previous loyalties, right? Then I take it back because I have no idea what's going on. No one.
But that's the problem, right? It's not acting on orders. Like, for example, when Lois Lerner's at the IRS and she decides to target conservative groups, she didn't have to personally be told by Barack Obama to do that. What happens is you have these establishment institutions that all assume that they are correct, that they run the show, that they're morally superior. So they don't have to send emails to each other saying, I demand that you destroy documents to cover up for Joe Biden. Like, that doesn't have to occur. They all share this mindset that, oh, Trump's this horrible person that's going to take power away from us, and he's going to try to find things that might be criminal, etc. Let's cover that up. For example, if this is a person that's sympathetic to the Biden administration and she's worried that some of the documents in there could be detrimental to Biden's reputation or legally to people that were operating in her agency and elsewhere in the Biden administration, wouldn't she have a motivation to destroy evidence that may prove that? But Prime's like, well, do you have any evidence that Joe Biden personally ordered it? The only evidence we have of Joe Biden personally ordering anything is ordering chocolate chip ice cream. The man was a human vegetable, which, by the way, people like Primecayes covered up for. So the idea that it's like, well, I'm just saying that Joe Biden personally didn't order it. Yeah, great. And does that make it any less troublesome? Any less nefarious? If she's acting on her own to cover up illegalities or potentially bad-looking thing from the Biden administration, as opposed to she was personally ordered by Joe Biden, does it really make a difference?
I don't necessarily think it's on acting orders from the Biden administration. First of all, I have concerns about whether Biden's presidency is even legit after this autopin scandals come out. I mean, we'll have to see. But yeah, you don't know about the autopin thing. So basically, they found a bunch of documents recently that were all signed, and they have when they were signed, we know for a fact he was in a different location. Some of them were the executive orders, some were pardons, and they were all signed.
Autopen is online service where you can store a signature, and then we click.
I like Gibbs a lot, and I am about to criticize Gibbs for something that I myself do. But Gibbs is like on a point that's important, right? And then we as an aside, we moved off to this autopen thing. The autopen argument's a fine argument about the failures of the Biden administration, but it seems like a little bit of a tangent here. But I do that all the time, so
sign and it'll automatically imprint the signature.
Yeah, and so now that we know that,
is that illegal?
Well.
You know what? To be honest, Obama and Trump have both done it, but I think it should be illegal. Okay. The issue, as he pointed out, is there are questions of the location of Biden when some of these documents were signed.
And his mental capability.
Oh. I mean, that is a broader argument, but I think the actual legal court you'd actually get in court is, hey, Joe Biden wasn't there in the Oval Office. He was traveling when that document went out. How did he sign it through email? Like, what's going on?
Well, my bigger
but not to derail, to go back to where we were.
Well, yeah. So back to where I was going with that. So my point is with that, we have Mike Johnson on file saying that Biden doesn't know what's going on. My point with this is I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, it's some sort of deep state Biden, whatever. What I'm saying is I think that Erica Carr knows they've been doing nefarious things. They know there's doing illegal things, and this is what we call covering her ass. And she's over here burning things because she doesn't want Doge uncovering it because they're finding all sorts of fraud all over the place.
So we can find a little agreement here, right? And I've discussed this before, right? USAID does have actually do nefarious things for the intelligence services. It's been used to undermine various foreign countries, right? It goes in on the auspices of aid, but then it will carry out intelligence operations. We already know this, but that doesn't mean, of course, it wasn't actually doing aid in other areas, right? But they were used as a tool to do whatever, like the CIA.
No, we don't know what they're doing. That's the whole problem.
Yeah. And so if that's what they're burning, again, I condemn it completely. You'll find no defense here.
Yeah. Well, so then you agree with me, Doge?
No, why would I agree with Doge? Hold on. No, did you forget the first half of this conversation?
Well, you brought up the Inspector
General. When I talked about the Inspector General. Well, hold on. They were doing this because of Congress. It wasn't like CIA was a rogue agency doing this, right? These were orders by the president, hey, we want to do these operations within whatever country, right? These things were approved. This isn't actually corruption.
No. That's not true. Congress oftentimes, and not only is Congress not approved, many times the president, who, again, I remind you, is the head of the executive and in charge of all of these agencies like USAID, many times he has no clue what's going on. So are you really trying, for example, we have all sorts of color revolutions that were being done through USAID around the country. How much do you think the average member of Congress and Senate knows about that? Even if you argue, well, a couple of them in one committee may have known, well, that's still not democratic. Did we vote for the National Endowment of Democracy suggesting that populists in Poland be locked up? Did we vote for that? Is that what the average American wanted? Is that democracy? How many Congress people do you think knew that? Did the president even know that? And the truth is, no. Oftentimes they have no clue. They're aware that there are agencies out there that are using subterfuge and all of these crazy tactics in an effort to position countries more favorably to the United States, but they don't know the details. Or very few of them know very few details, I guess would be a better way to put it, right? And again, all of this counters Prime's original argument, which was, well, the status quo is solving this stuff. Do you have any evidence of the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, going into USAID, forcing the director to say, quick, burn everything? Why not? If you're acknowledging, yeah, there's shady stuff there and that they are probably covering it up, that's probably what's occurring, and that's why they're burning all this stuff, but at the same time, the status quo was solving it, then why weren't they burning this stuff before Trump came in? And now he's going to make the argument, but actually this was all legit. It's all legal. Congress voted for it. Then why burn it? If it's all above board, why do you have to destroy it?
Things were approved.
I mean, like the operations from USAID, there was no, at least to my understanding, there's no evidence that these things were done by the CIA on the CIA's own behalf, right, without the president knowing
USAID.
at the time.
I do think, though, I think the average person would not conclude that multi-administration or inter-admin agencies like the CIA are acting under the direct orders of the president who is currently in office, with the example being Chuck Schumer saying that the intelligence agencies have 6 ways from Sunday from getting back at you to Trump if Trump tries to change what they're doing. The implication, of course, is I think this is fairly widely accepted in foreign policy. The CIA has long-term operations that span decades. So every time a president comes in, the CIA gives a briefing to the president of current operations. That suggests largely that what the CIA and the other U.S. agencies are doing, they are not at the direction of the current administration.
Okay, although that current administration can cancel those. Oh, we don't like this operation. Is it going against our current policies? Then we're just done for that.
Well,
right?
I think Trump was the first president.
Wait a minute. That's the entire argument of Doge. Prime just gives the whole debate away. Yes, that's what Trump's doing. We don't like that currently we're sending hundreds of millions of dollars to trans mice or to Sesame Street in Arab countries. We don't like that. We don't like that USAID's interfering in elections in Poland or possibly Romania, Brazil, etc. We don't like that. We're going to stop it. Prime said that was anti-democratic at the beginning. Now he's saying, well, it's the purview of the president to stop those things if he wants. Right. Exactly. That's the point. And so now what seems to be the case, given the way this debate's occurring, and we'll see if Gibbs gets a chance to talk or if it's just going to be Tim arguing this, there seemed to be that they're burning evidence of what happened. They're destroying evidence. So if you're like, well, the president has the right to be informed and cancel these things if he doesn't like them, but they're destroying evidence of what exactly they're doing or have done, you don't see the need for an agency like Doge?
To try to do that, and they impeached him for it.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that claim. So you'll have to show me that it was because that Trump was trying to attack the intelligence. And to be clear, I'm not defending the intelligence community, right? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm a fucking leftist.
No,
Absolutely not.
My point is just that, like the Ukraine Burisma scandal is a really great example of something untoward is going on, and it was a CIA agent who filed the initial paperwork to trigger the Trump impeachment. And interestingly, YouTube, the man's name was Eric Charmella, and YouTube would delete any video that said his name. Facebook would take down any post that said his name. This is a fact. Twitter was the only platform, I believe, that would allow you to actually say the man's name. Right. And this was rooted in Joe Biden, of course, engaged in an illegal quid pro quo with the president at the time. I believe it was Poroshenko. He said, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting the $1 billion. And Donald Trump made a phone call to, at the time, I think it was Zelensky. I'm not sure. No, was it? I don't know if it was Zelensky. But he made a call and said, what is this? What happened? I want to know what happened here. A CIA agent then blew the whistle, filing a report. The Vindmans, then, I believe it was Alex Vindman, then took it up the chain. Congress got a hold of it, and they impeached Donald Trump over this for trying to stop what was a CIA operation. A CIA counterterrorism director was on the board of Burisma. When Trump said, I want to know what Biden was doing here, they impeached him.
Yeah, so...
Anyway, I digress. My point was simply... Okay. My point was simply the CIA...
Yeah, I mean, and Prime doesn't know about this. I personally been on panels where I talked about this exact thing. Yes, Trump wanted to look into the forcing firing of a prosecutor using $1 billion from USAID to fire a prosecutor that was at least on paper looking into the company that Hunter Biden was on the board of directors of. And Joe Biden came up with the plan to do a quid pro quo and say, unless you fire that prosecutor, you're not going to get this money. That prosecutor ends up being fired. New prosecutor gets in. Within 6 months, they drop the investigation into Hunter Biden's company. That happened. And then when Trump said, hey, we want to look into this, they impeached him for it. Now, there are arguments to counter this, which, Prime's not making here. He's just saying pleading ignorance. But the reason that Tim brings this up is like, well, look, if a current president wants to look into the stuff that happened before or cancel stuff that happened before. When Trump tried that, they impeached him. Now under Doge, we see all of these judges fighting, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems it's not as easy. And by the way, again, no one's made the central point. How isn't this directly contradictory to Prime's initial claims that, like, oh, it's anti-democratic to do this stuff, where he's now saying, sure, it's within the purview of the president to do this.
CIA does not act underneath the president for my entire life until Donald Trump. And only now, actually, and only to a certain degree, because he's firing them.
I don't know if that's the case, right? And again, I'm not defending this is a weird space to be in, because I can't really defend intelligence agencies, right? I know they do all kinds of crazy shit. It's from an outside perspective, like I can't tell, like at what points in time is the CIA more under control or less under control, or the other agencies,
Well, that's a problem.
right? Well, yes, but that doesn't mean Doge is going to solve it, right? Like
Well, I
that
mean,
doesn't mean
you brought up the inspector generals earlier. If they were going to solve it, they've existed. How long has the inspector general's office?
Sure. How does this solve it? Right. So let's say
We open up the books and see what they're doing.
yeah,
That's the whole point.
We'll
Right. And great call here, Gibbs. You know, Prime is in a difficult position, and I've talked to Prime before, and I know this. Now, Prime, I'm going to say this. I don't want people to have a negative view, think that I'm talking negatively about Prime here. Prime does something that I do, that Gibbs does, that Tim Pool does, and that every one of you in the chat do. We're all tribal. We tend to focus on issues from certain perspectives that affect us more, or that we think affect groups that we have an affinity for more. Some people do that based on race. I tend to do it based on rural, the type of people that live in rural America. That's generally where my focus are. Maybe you're doing it based on sex, like you care about men's issues or women's issues. Maybe it's religion, you care about Christian issues or Muslim issues. All of those things, all are legitimate, by the way. There's nothing wrong with any of that. I know Prime is heavily focused in a lot of racial issues, and he has a significant problem with, like, our FBI and actions they were taking during the civil rights movement against people like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. I've heard him speak of this. So he's in a weird position because he understands that there's been, what, in his perspective, shady, horrible things that have been done by these bureaucracies that they've never truly been held accountable for. And yet he has to argue against Doge because Orange Man bad. So he has to argue against it. And so he was like, well, the status quo is solving this. And Gibbs is like, well, clearly not. Right? Like, if you're right that the status quo is solving, we've already had all of these inspector generals. We had all the Government Accountability Office. None of this has been solved. None of it's been brought to account. And Prime's argument's just like, yeah, but Doge bad.
open up. First of all, I want an audit of all agencies, everything, right? That I want. But we were already doing that. We already have processes to all these things, but whatever, right? In any case,
That's not true. Then how long was that audit going to take? And what does audit mean, right? Because we're talking specifically about these issues of potential corruption from previous administrations, etc. Prime himself is talking about shady things that have been done by the FBI. Does he mean audit just like the financial audit? Or does he mean audit as if we want an account of all of the things that you're up to? Because we don't have that. How long were we supposed to wait for that? It's just nonsensical.
okay, so
Those processes aren't working. It's the whole point. Aren't working. It's the whole point of Doge.
yeah, then we can fix these processes. This is unconstitutional. We'll get back to that in a second. Okay, all right, hold your horses, buddy. We got time.
Sure.
And again, that's the point. Prime's going to say, when he says anti-democratic, we've already argued why literally it's not anti-democratic. The bureaucracies are what's anti-democratic. When he's saying anti-democratic, he's talking about what these institutions say. It's anti-democratic because the bureaucracies call themselves the democracy, so anything against them is anti-democratic. And when push comes to shove, he'll just argue legally. But what if the Supreme Court says, no, this isn't illegal? Then what? Then what's Prime's argument? The courts are wrong?
But yeah, so I don't know, right? Again, from outsider's perspective, the level of power these agencies have, or sorry, the intelligence agencies have at any point in time. So it's a weird space to try to be defending them. So I don't know, let's kind of move past it because we.
No, I agree. Yeah. My point was not to ignite a whole thing on the CIA. It was just to basically point out. I'll keep it flat. The FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and all other 14. They exist with the same leadership through multiple administrations, and that de facto means they're if they're going to launch an operation, it will start before Obama and extend after Obama.
And you want continuity of operations, right? You don't want them to be so like it's a tough balance there, right? Like at some point, like you want them to like complete a mission once it's started, but also we want to adjust with the changing times, with the priorities, with the will of the people. So who knows, right? Yeah.
I mean, but okay, well, moving on, I guess, to like, I guess a related thing with this. If you had told me 5 years ago that someone was going to set up an organization to cut government bloat and government waste, I would have been I'd have been hesitant because I'm, like I said, I'm Texan. I don't trust big government. I don't want more, organizations, more, agencies. However, Doge has come in and they immediately done what they said they were going to do. If you told me 5 years ago that, hey, there's bloat, there's these things, I don't think anybody, left or right, would have disagreed. But now that Doge is actually uncovering the bloat and going through these things, it's like up in arms because my pork belly project has been canceled.
No,
and it's not helping anybody.
No.
That's what it seems like.
Doge is not actually uncovering the bloat. I mean, so there is a level of waste within any organization, no matter what, whether this organization, whether anything, private.
here. None.
Okay, all right. Maybe this guy's job. Maybe that's bloat. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Choice words for Calvin.
I'm kidding. But no, there's always a level of waste within any organization, right? What Doge is doing, right? Like, are they reporting things correctly? Are they understanding how these contracts work? I think again, we're seeing they actually don't, right? So there's plenty of reports of the errors that Doge has had. Reports of like them overestimating contracts, of them saying that they saved on a contract that was actually canceled under Joe Biden. There's been a whole list of errors, and then we have people just fact checking these contracts, and they're shown that yes, there's an inflated amount of savings that Doge is reporting.
Yeah, I mean, to be
Okay, so this is the type of argument that Prime should be making, and I don't disagree that there will be errors that are made by Doge, just like there'll be errors made by the Government Accountability Office. There could be errors made by an inspector general. All of that is true. What is indisputable at this point is, one, the status quo. There is massive fraud and waste, which everyone agrees with. Second, it is not dealt with. Third, the size of the government's expanding so rapidly that quickly interest payments on our debt will outpace all other expenditures if it hasn't already, and that's not sustainable. And so if the best argument you have against Doge is, well, they're pointing stuff out and they're putting it out there, and sometimes the stuff they're putting out, it's over-exaggerated, or they didn't understand why that spending was taking place. That's it? That's the best argument that you could come up with? That doesn't seem to be, given the gravity of what we all agree on, the size of the government, the amount of waste and fraud. Remember, we've had organizations like the Government Accountability Office that have admitted in the past, hundreds of billions of dollars in the PPP loans on their own that they say went out fraudulently. And what'll happen is you'll have these people, and by the way, it's the same people that were the fact checkers of Donald Trump that would constantly say that, like, oh, actually, when Trump says this, it's not true. And that would be the headline. Not true, says Snopes. Not true, says PolitiFact fact checker. And then you dive into, well, why wasn't it true? Well, Trump said that the first quarter of his second year in office was the fastest growing, for manufacturing in 20 years in the United States. And while technically that's true, it wasn't because of the policies of Donald Trump. It was because of something that Obama did previously, blah, 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 blah. So in other words, what they're saying is, well, it's true, but we disagree with Trump's rationale of why we think he said that and what that means. We just accept these fact checkers of, what they say is accurate. Now, the counter argument to that is, well, do you just accept Doge, what they say is accurate? No, I have no problem with Doge being like, okay, we're 60 days into an administration. And we're making our first pass at stuff, and we're saying, this is all the stuff we're looking that looks really suspect. And a percentage of that stuff, people are like, actually, you're looking at this a little wrong. This particular one isn't suspect because of this. I'm okay with then people looking into those claims and saying, well, is that true? Because what I know is the people that have cheered for the status quo and have cheered for corruption against Donald Trump in his previous administration, the 4 years since then, and now the current administration, they have every incentive to say, no, we hate Doge. We want the status quo continuing. And so I'm not just going to instantly buy what Doge says, just like I'm not going to instantly buy what the fact checkers say. But if the criticism is some of the things that Doge are saying is fraudulent will end up having an explanation for, great. I will take that harm, which is a harm, over the harm of Doge not existing and the status quo continuing, where we continue to have hundreds of billions of dollars going to organizations, ideologies that are anathema to what I believe, that are going to fraud, that are going to waste, that are bloating the size of the federal government in unsustainable ways.
To be fair to that, though, all right, so anytime you have a new organization come in, they're going to look at things, right? So, like, there's the story with Elon Musk and Twitter, right, where they had his server farm, and they go in there, and they're like, we could pull this out on Christmas, and him and 2 other guys go in there and pull it up, and whatever, and everybody's like, oh, look how bad Twitter's doing. Well, you know, I mentioned Kevin O'Leary earlier. He mentions that, oh, okay, Twitter is back to like 60-70% the stock price of what it was originally before Elon bought it. After that, that's as of yesterday, right? Of 54, it was at $54 yesterday when it was closed. And so and these added new features. You know, the site was running smoothly after a few hiccups. So when I look at Doge, this is the exact same concept. You're going to go in, you are going to have mistakes because you are clearing things out. But then what they do is they will have the mistake and then they correct them. And y'all are saying
No, they actively have to be called out. They have to be called out and embarrassed.
Oh no.
Ben says, is there good evidence for this wasteful spending Doge is finding? I need to show people that it's not a bunch of lies. Yeah, they have a website that you could check out, right? And they've talked publicly about many of these things, such as you heard Trump talk about them on the stage. The problem is, one of the problems is with the messaging of Doge, that it's so massive. The amount of spending, the size of the government is so massive that people become numb to it. Rand Paul's done this for years, by the way. Rand Paul has his Festivus airing of grievances where he'll go to X and he'll just have like 15 thread post about like, did you know that you spent $40 million on marijuana effects on tarantulas? Did you know that? Did you know you spent $100 million on, you know, whether or not having yellow umbrellas makes people happier than having black umbrellas? Did you know that? Like, this exists and people just accept it. It's so in your face. People are just like, oh, what are you going to do? And you hear Democrats make this argument. Well, that's a pittance. Yeah, that's so we're talking about $1 trillion economy. What's $100 million here, $1 billion there? But remember, these are the same Democrats that shut down the government over not letting Trump have $14 billion for a wall. So it's interesting how they become fiscally conservative as soon as it's, you know, agenda like, hey, let's protect our borders. No, we can't have that. But oh boy, when it comes to every other project, sure, spend. And it adds up.
Oh, no.
Go on. All right. So, for instance, the agency once claimed to have canceled contracts ended under President George W. Bush. The agency also wrongly reported canceled an $8 billion contract when it was only worth $8 million. All right. This is not, I mean, I have more examples. This is not a isolated instance with this agency. But the thing is, though, what people like you will do is that they'll talk about like the Doge number, right? And what many news agencies report, they'll put the Doge number. So that's like 115 billion, I think, by now. And you can take a look at the Doge wall of receipts, right? They got a website. Oh, it's the deck clock. But you can take a look at the Doge wall of receipts. They do have a website. And 115 billion. That is not a believable number. It's not, right? Because
why?
Because of all the errors that I'm talking about. So these are what they're reporting, but there's no, at this point, there's no reason to believe that. Now, there's others.
You're saying that the Department of Government Efficiency is not efficient at all?
Indeed, I'd say that, right? Now, there's another website, all right, that you can also take a look, called Doge Tracker Musk Watch. I can show you the URL if you need it.
I think
Doge.muskwatch.com. Indeed, yeah.
Muskwatch.
Yeah, take a look, all right?
Gotta watch out for President Musk, you know?
Yeah. So this takes a look and it looks at what's actually verified, like verified savings here, right? And it compares that to grants. Sometimes grants can't be verified, but this is actually doing the comparison. You can go down to, like, let's say like the first USAID one, right? Like, right, that large bar, like in the lower half, yeah, right? Look at, put the cursor back on the bar, right? And there you go, right?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so it says what Doge
$244 million.
Yeah, that actual, the overestimated savings, right? So it shows the, what Doge says it's saved and then what's actually saved. Now, this is an interesting website that I actually just discovered.
Wait, hold on, let's look at this website real quick. All right,
let's do that.
So the last one. You go back to the last website if you don't mind, real quick. All right, so this says $714.
You're missing the mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. All right, so can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. So it says 115 billion saved, 714.29 per taxpayer. Let's go to this other site here. Back to the one that we were just on, if you don't mind. All right, so on this one, what's crazy to me is when we look at these things, right? We have at the bottom, you had the 254 million that was like not verified, is what you just said, I guess, what you had pulled up. And we have verified cancel 8.6 and 29.9. What's interesting to me is when Dems talk about taxing people, right? They're like, oh, we got to tax the billionaires. These are the ones we got. This is terrible. But when Doge makes these kind of cuts that actually save taxpayers hundreds of dollars every year, now we sit here and scream, "Ree!"
Okay, but it doesn't actually do it. So
Okay, so two things to say here. One, Gibbs, the argument he could be making is way better here. So let's assume Prime's numbers are completely accurate, right? Let's assume that this Doge tracker is completely accurate. Here's some problems with that. One, okay, so what's the problem? If it's true that Doge has so far saved us $8.9 billion, that's according to the source that he's pointing to, that they have right now, 60 days in, saved us $8.9 billion. That is a good pause. He does look like he's dabbing. Okay, that's the plus. We saved nearly $10 billion. What's the minus? Well, they claimed it was $100 billion. Okay. I failed. Yes, overinflating what you're claiming to have done that was good is not a good thing. But saving $10 billion is a good thing. And that's a better thing than the bad thing of overinflating how much you're claiming to have saved. For example, if I go out and I say, hey, I helped feed 100 homeless people today, and it turns out that actually I only helped feed 10 homeless people, feeding 10 homeless people is still a good thing. And it's ultimately better than the negative of me claiming to have fed 10 times more. Nug says, lying is good when it's my side, actually. Good one, Rob. So would you prefer, first off, you assume that a lie means that you're intentionally conflating things. I don't even think that that's what this website's saying. They're not saying, here, we'll bring up your post just so they're saying that no, they say that they're doing stuff, but actually it's incorrect. Secondly, so what you're saying, Nug, is, you would rather not save the 10 billion. Get rid of the agency because they say they saved 10 billion, but actually, or they say they saved 100 billion, but actually it was only 10 billion. Okay, by that same logic then, Nug, if the American Cancer Institute gets funding from U.S. government dollars and they say, we're able to help treatment for 100,000 people, but it turns out it's only 50,000 people, then you would cancel the American Cancer Institute, correct? Because otherwise you'd be saying, oh, lying's good for our side. Correct, Nug? We'll wait for your response. Correct? Nug says, not what I said, but what else is he lying about? Notice how he can't answer the question. My entire point was, let's assume that this second website is accurate. And they're saying Doge's claim to save 100 billion, but actually it's only closer to 10 billion. Wasn't saving 10 billion good? So that would still be a reason to cheer for this agency. You might say, hey, they're overinflating and overselling what they're doing, but it's still a good thing. And Nog interprets that as, oh, so you're saying lying's good for your side. Nowhere close did I say lying's good for my side. Never said that once. Did not even remotely say that. But if that's what you're going to interpret me saying, well, still saving 10 billion is good, oh, that means you're saying lying's good for your side. Okay, if the American Cancer Institute says we saved 100,000, but they only saved 50,000, then that means that you're saying lying's good for their side if you want that agency to continue to exist. It's nonsensical. That's how many government agencies, how many administrations have verifiably oversold what they claim to have done? Second, we have no proof that the numbers that from this Doge tracker are any more accurate than the numbers from Doge themselves. It is a fair criticism to say that when Doge puts out a number, even people like myself are likely to look at it and say, oh, Doge claims they saved $100 million on this issue. And unless I'm going through that issue myself and verifying those numbers myself, I'm taking on faith at some point what they're telling me. Just like if someone says, no, that number's inaccurate, I'm taking on faith as well. Now, if one side says this is the number and the other side says this is the number, hopefully one of those two sides will provide some sort of proof. And then me as an objective party, or, well, none of us are truly objective, but you try, will be able to look through and parse out to the best of your ability what's going on. Do you think that's what Prime did there? So when Prime said, go down to the bar that's the biggest, see, they claim to have saved 300 million, but actually it was only 20 million. Do you think Prime's looked into the details there? Or is he just falling into the exact trap he's criticizing about Doge, that he's just completely accepting? He said, I was just made aware of this website. And yet he's completely taking what they're saying at face value. I think that he's right to make the criticism that people do that about Doge. But isn't he following for the very criticism that he's claiming of the other side? And then there's another question. Who's running this Doge Tracker website, and why weren't they looking for government fraud and waste previous to Doge? If they have the ability to actually go through these contracts and through these expenditures, why weren't they attempting to do it, for the last 30 years? It's almost like what it seems like is this. They just don't want Doge to be going through this stuff. And so far, the best argument that Primes came up with is, well, they've only saved us $8.9 billion. Okay, that sounds good. Nug says, I don't like liars, especially unelected coastal billionaire immigrants making those decisions. Do you like unelected bureaucrats that are really running our government and the lies they tell? Do you like that? Or do you only reserve your commentary for hating liars from unelected people when it's an unelected person that's looking into those previous unelected people? I'm fine with Doge going through stuff. Stop topping shit. Now, I'll talk all the shit I want. You're the tough guy that came in and put words in my mouth that's saying lying's okay if it's for my side. Now you're the coward that can't back up those claims. Now you're begging me to stop talking shit because you know you'd be wrecked and fucking embarrassed. Why don't you call in right now, Nug? Or are you just going to lie about working out right now? What kind of exercise are you doing that you have so much time to be able to type this shit? The truth is, I can intuit from the fact that you put words in my mouth that you're one of these fucking piece of shit scumbags that were actually okay with the fraud, and your hatred of Trump and Musk are such that you're going to say, oh, it must be good if they're going after it, and I assume they're lying about everything. I assume that everything they're saying is a lie. Go ahead, Nug. Tell me specifically what Musk lied about that Primecayes just talked about here that you're accusing me of defending. Go ahead. What's the lie? Go ahead. Show me. Can you even tell me what the institution that Musk was claiming to have canceled contracts that Primecayes just talked about that said was a lie because Doge Tracker said it? Can you tell me what that institution was? You're so confident that it was a lie. Stop talking shit. You fucking worthless sack of shit, anonymous piece of garbage. I'll talk all the shit I want. Some fuck knob that's going to come in and say, oh, you're saying lying's good if it's for your side. You fucking loser. You anonymous sack of shit. I'll talk all the shit I want, you fucking piece of garbage. Hey, you won't be working out, say, Wednesday. Want to call in and debate me? Have fun with the circle jersey. Not wearing a jersey. Thanks for your... Oh, circle jerk. Now you're telling us what you're really doing. There you go. That sums it up. That's why Nug Huffa can't call in. Yeah, makes sense now. Hey, man, you're probably a little winded from all that jerking you got going off. I apologize. No wonder your arguments don't make sense here. Ban you then? I don't need to ban you. You're making the show better. Your inane commentary and putting words in my mouth make things better. Anyways, let's get to a super chat. Ben for $5. Rob, what's the TDS talking point going to be for cutting taxes people making less than $150,000? I'm super curious because how will they see it as bad? It benefits millionaires, blah, blah, blah. One, we'll see if what they're likely to say is it won't happen. It won't happen. And then second, they'll say like, oh, even if he does that, like it's still going to be lowering taxes massively on like the people that are higher and it, they'll just say it won't happen. And if it does happen, they'll make excuses why the Democrats would have did it better. All right, let's continue. Thanks for the entertainment, though, Nug. Appreciate that.
What do you mean?
So I'm going to ignore you. You don't know what you're saying.
What do you mean?
Right?
If there's canceled funding, it's taxpayer dollars being saved. Is that correct? Yes or no?
I'm sorry. Repeat that, please.
So if this is your website's correct, right? Mm-hmm. These are the cuts you admit they've done.
Yeah.
All right. That means that's money that's been saved by the taxpayer that's being spent can be spent more efficiently. Correct?
Hold on. It depends, right? Like, were those things that should have been canceled? Right? We haven't actually established that. We're just assuming that Doge knows what should and shouldn't be canceled. Now, there could be things that you and I agree with, right? I'm sure we can find common ground on contracts.
But you agree, even if they're not something that should be canceled, it would still, in theory, save us money. Correct?
And I don't care about just saving us money, right? I'm not a conservative. It doesn't matter to me that we simply save money. I want to use that money for like important purposes to actually run the government. Sorry.
I just want to make sure this is clear. It's not necessarily a correction, but when we highlight...
And Prime does make an argument there that he could make it more succinctly, but well, just because they cut back $8.9 billion doesn't mean that those cutbacks were good, right? Because Gibbs is making the argument I'm making, which is, oh, okay, so your criticism, he saved us $8.9 billion, isn't that still a good thing?
highlighted USAID cuts showing 244 million. That's actually just one component. That's
one component.
Yeah, so that's an O&M. Right. So I just want to make sure everyone understands. There's actually a bigger list of all the different USAID cuts. Here's another for 70 million. Here's another for 12 million. And I'm sorry, it's what overstated savings. Oh, okay. So they're saying terminated funding is 351 million. Not wait, what? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let me clarify. Doge is claiming 595 million. They can verify 351 million was terminated. The overestimate was 244. So I read that wrong. Yeah. So the first number on this Musk tracker says, for USAID, O&M follow-on contract was 350 million saved. Just for example, there are a bunch of other USAID contract cuts. This one, for instance, was 12 million. Another was 70, and another was 9.8.
This is pulling from government databases, right? So there's the Doge website, the wall of receipts, right? And
the other thing is, just looking at that second number of the blue. Let's see if I can go back to this real quick. It says itemized cuts. So does that cuts that they've itemized that will be taking place, but they haven't? And so we would add that to the verified? I don't know.
We know this was canceled. That doesn't mean Elon is wrong, lying, or the numbers are not correct.
Okay.
Amen.
Well, you'll see what I'm saying. So click on that, the USAID contract you were looking at before, right? Click on the bar itself. Yeah. And click the link. So you see the FBDS, right? There's that. That's what you'll find on Doge, right? You'll take a look at this. This is like fucking inscrutable. But also, there's the USA spending website. So if you look at that, right? If you go back to the other one, right? So
wait, hold on.
All right, take a look.
So this is what the Doge tracker actually linked.
Yeah.
It says that the Doge estimated savings is 595 million, but it's actually only 351 million, and it's claiming 244 is overstated. But when you actually click the link they provide, it says the base and all options value is 596 million.
And exactly, yeah. So if you go to USA,
Tim's not understanding what Prime's saying. This is the Doge document. Now, if you go to the second document, you'll see that's not the case.
Yeah, the USA spending, the other link there, right?
Click for links. I did.
I mean, just while y'all are doing this,
yeah, there you go.
Do you agree
this
that
is a much more
no, this is important.
Yeah, this is a much more readable version. So exactly what you're talking about before. There's the other options, right? Those options aren't exercise options.
Well,
so
that's his potential award.
Yeah, that's what's actually been, because you have to actually learn to read this. I spent the time to actually learn to read this thing, right? So the current award amount, that's the amount that's already been
verified.
spent. Yeah, right. Yeah, the 556, that's options.
They were going to get.
If they exercise those options,
and they were going to.
Were they? Do you know that? So you can have an extension. So you can sign a contract.
Wait, hold on, come on.
You can sign a contract, right? And then you can say, hey, I'm going to extend that contract. You have the options, right? To extend that options multiple times, and I'll get additional money for that. But if you don't extend those options, because they might not need the money.
Are you joking?
Okay. So this is bad. This is actually worse for Prime. So the big argument is that this Doge tracker has is, so company A, let's say we give a contract to, we'll go back to the American Cancer Institute. So we're paying $300 million to the American Cancer Institute, and we've already earmarked for the next 2 years, we're going to send you that money. Doge cancels that. But then there was also an option to pay them another $300 million the following 2 years. And Doge is like, no, you're not getting that money anyways. And Prime's like, but that's a lie then to say that saved that money, because we don't have proof that without Doge that would have been picked up in the first place. Well, I think that's sort of really parsing the details here. Yeah, I guess you're right that number hasn't literally been written down as absolutely 100% going to be spent. It's just in the normal case of things, what would have happened if we continued with business as usual. Unless Prime has some sort of argument that these additional awards are almost never picked up. I don't think it's unfair to say the government said we're absolutely spending $300 million here, and then we may decide to continue to spend an additional $300 million the following year. For Doge saying, yeah, we just canceled that and saved $600 million, to say, actually, you only saved $300 million because for all we know, you wouldn't have picked up the $300 million additional. Sort of a joke.
I got to be honest. I kind of feel like you tried pulling a fast one.
I didn't try pulling a fast one. I'm literally walking you through the website. I'm not pulling
They have an option to pull out. I do understand what you're saying, but the idea that an organization that has offered up an additional $250 million would be like, you know what? We decided we don't want it. We're not going to take it.
Never happened in history.
Yeah, never happened.
That absolutely happens all the time.
What? You do know that they sell $500 hammers to the Pentagon. This was a big scandal.
Yeah,
$30,000.
I am perfectly aware of that. I'm aware the Pentagon doesn't pass audits, right? I'm aware that we.
So the Marines,
Marines
do?
Yeah, the
do.
Marines passed it
I
on.
don't know.
We like
That's
the Marines.
crazy.
Yeah, I am aware that the Pentagon gets overcharged all the time, right? And other agencies actually get examined and run in a different manner, right? Like the Social Security Administration doesn't have the same amount of waste and bloat as the Pentagon. We can understand these
Well,
things
the
are
whole
treated
Social
differently.
Security is bloat, but go ahead.
It's not all bloat. I mean, obviously, like this is important. This is a useful.
Hold on, you realize I can't let this one go. Just you
Sure.
know what the Social Security. If I invested my tax dollars that I spent that go towards Social Security, the same amount exactly in the S&P like fund or mutual fund, my return would be drastically higher. You understand that, right? Than like what you're getting. So basically, Social Security is boning the
Yeah,
average American out of
that's-
their money. You're like,
People don't save that way. We have to actually design a system for people. I wish people.
wait, why is that our problem? Like,
Why is that a problem?
This is
Because
the
I care
disconnect
about a
between-
fellow man and woman. That's why.
So
it's
do
a
I,
problem.
but this is
that's what I'm doing.
This is the difference between, I guess, you and me on this, right? We voted for Doge to come in and clear this stuff out, right? We see these things as wasteful. We see these.
Look, the conversation of Social Security, one, the problem that no one's really talking about here is the money that's earmarked for Social Security gets robbed all the time. That money gets taken by the government and spent elsewhere. Gibbs is making the point that's correct, that what ends up happening is if you would take the money that the government takes out for Social Security that you're forced to pay, and you would just put that in bonds or you would put that into a mutual fund, you would end up with a far larger number when you retired than you're forced to pay in to Social Security. Prime makes the argument, yeah, but people don't save that way. And Gibbs is like, okay, that's their problem. So Prime's going to make this argument that's like, we need some sort of social safety net. But the problem is, it's not just wealthy Americans, it's everyday normal taxpaying Americans that are getting robbed by this. And even if I don't think they should have forced people to pay into Social Security in the first place, but even if you make the argument that morally we should all be forced to pay into this pool that then gets divvied out to people when they become elderly and they'll need help and they're no longer working, even if you make that argument, the problem is because of the massive overspending of our federal government, that money becomes less and less and less and less valuable. So they need more, right? Like the Social Security is being robbed, inflation's causing this to be less and less. And so it's always this exponentially growing government. I mean, half of the dollars in existence were printed like in the last 5 years. It's insanity. So, yeah, the fact that Social Security is not solvent and it's predicted to run out of money is a huge problem. Saying, but morally, we need some sort of system. Okay, we could agree or disagree on that, but isn't that a reason to end fraud and waste?
Times, like I can't tell you how many times I know people that are working 3 jobs. They're going, "Why am I getting taxed so much?" And it's going to pay people that are just living off the teat of society. And Doge is part of the answer to that. They're going in and clearing stuff out. And even by your numbers, right? Let's just take your numbers at the 351 million mark. That's a ton of money.
Well, hold on. This is interesting. I'm trying to figure out what these phrases actually mean.
There's a glossary that you can check out, right?
So, okay, we'll do that. But
So here's what we're going to do. Has anyone seen this debate? Because I got probably a half an hour more. And as you can see, when I talked about how I spend a lot of time talking and analyzing the debate, we're at 35 minutes into the debate. So we basically have 2 hours left. And I've been streaming for an hour and 34 minutes, which I think in some ways might be frustrating for people that are watching this, but at least I'm not ripping off people's content. I think one of the most frustrating thing is you'll see these React streamers that just sit here and go, and basically play the entirety of someone else's video. I try to make sure that I'm at least putting in double the time of reviewing a video than the actual length of the video, because I think it's unfair to the content creators myself to not do that. So we're going to skip ahead because I have heard that things get a little spicier later. And so with all apologies to Tim Pool, to Admiral Gibbs, and to Primecayes, we're not going to get a complete picture of what this performance was like because I just don't have the time to do it, and I'd like to be done here within the next half hour. So I'm stuck in the mines till I finish the debate. So let's skip ahead to, I don't know, what sounds like a good round number. How about an hour and 45? Sound good? Let's see what happens. Now, I'm fully admitting, for all we know, in the middle of this debate, any one of these 3 participants could have been absolutely the most eloquent speaker ever and absolutely shredded everyone else's arguments. That could have happened, right? People ask me these questions all the time, Baller. Have you thought about debating Parker? Sure, I'd debate Parker. I would debate anybody. Sure. I have open invitation to debate people whenever, wherever. That's fine, as long as it fits into my schedule. All right, here we go. So with the caveat that we're skipping a huge section of this debate and we're just getting to what it looked like 2/3 of the way in, because I don't have time to review the whole thing. Let's do it.
Like there are obligations, right, designed by Congress. Congress says we're going to spend this amount of money, right, to hire individuals to make this infrastructure improvement, right? The president does not have the ability to simply decide, I'm not going to do that, right?
You're actually wrong.
Oh, yeah, through the Impoundment Act. The Impoundment Act of 1974, right? There is a process to do that. There is a process for the president to say, I'd like to delay or possibly cancel this money, right? So that's a process that he could use. That is not Doge. That is not Doge.
The challenge at hand over the constitutionality is that Article 2, Section 1 says the executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States. He shall hold his office, et cetera, et cetera. Sole executive power is held by the President. We've had this strange phenomenon in this country. So one, USAID is operating under the executive branch, meaning Congress can apportion funding to USAID, and the executive branch has control over what it does. Meaning, you can put the funding there, Trump can say you're all fired. The issue then with checks and balances would be the judiciary needs to step in to make a determination as to whether or not this is being operated correctly. But it is within Trump's purview to do this. The check would be now if the courts agree or disagree.
No, he can.
It is constitutional.
No, it's not constitutional. We have plenty of challenges. We have literally plenty of challenges. Well, hold on. You're just putting up articles.
Constitution.
Yeah, hold on. No, but it's not. You're simply stating that's constitutional. But we have actually legal experts saying that's not constitutional.
Well, but they keep
so they would
winning
happen to know
cases.
better.
They keep
Hold on.
winning
I'm going to pause you again. USAID operates under the executive branch for which the president has sole authority.
Yeah. So
that means the president has the constitutional authority as he oversees these departments as they operate.
the president
Congress
can't
can apportion, and then what's going to happen right now is the judiciary will engage in what's called a check on the executive branch to make a determination about.
and they're literally doing that right now. Hold on. But this is important. This is
Okay, we'll leave Prime finish his point here, but I tend to agree more with Tim on this. Now, it is true that there are, quote, legal experts that are going to have the other side of this. There are legal experts that say Trump should be in prison for the rest of his life for jaywalking, too. Many of these legal experts turned out to be bias actors that just orange man bad, so whatever it takes to go after him. Fine, so be it. That's how many of these legal experts are. Nonetheless, let's steelman the position for Prime here, which is there are proper avenues that you can go through this, but it is unconstitutional to just create this separate agency that's unelected and go through this stuff themselves. Let's say that's the case. So that makes it illegal. Well, there's several problems with this. One, just because legal experts say that, if the Supreme Court would say, no, actually, Trump was allowed to do this, then what's Prime's argument? Would Prime then say, well, wait, the court's wrong and the legal experts are right? But that's the problem. There are legal experts on all sides of this issue. So Tim's like, well, forget about what the legal experts are saying. Here's my interpretation. What's your answer to this? And when you appeal to authority and say, well, experts say, Tim and Gibbs could appeal to say, well, other experts say opposite. Then I guess we'll appeal to the ultimate authority, the Supreme Court, and see what they weigh in and say on this. Secondly, if the Supreme Court would say that, yeah, actually Trump can't do this, notice what Prime said. This money is divvied out. And this is the way most of this works. Most of Congress's approved funding isn't saying things like $100 million needs to go to the American Cancer Institute for research on this particular thing, right? It'll just say something like, we put in a budget of $100 billion for USAID. And then USAID could use that money as they see fit. Or here's $500 million for cancer research funding. I have long been arguing that what should happen is if Trump loses in court, that he can't stop this funding, then what he should do in any discretionary funding like that doesn't specifically say from Congress exactly to whom the money goes and for what purpose, that we need conservative populist people to start NGOs, and for all of that money, Trump to say, fine, then we're no longer going to send that money to the previous organizations. Now we're going to send it to benefit conservatives, to conservative organizations. And then watch how quick the legal experts say, no, you can't do that. You can't fund groups that are antithetical to what we believe. For example, AIDS prevention, fine. Then let's fund a bunch of NGOs that push for Christian values and monogamous sex. Right? Send it to a bunch of Orthodox Christian groups. Let's send hundreds of millions of dollars to them, right? Money to study how to solve crime in inner cities. Let's send that money to the NRA for the importance of preserving our rights to self-defense. Oh, J.S. Urban, thank you so much for the raid, my friend. I really appreciate it. We're going through this debate. We just skipped to the section here to the end. That's what Trump should do. Now, this isn't reviewing this debate necessarily. This is more just me saying what should happen if these things occur. We're sending money to the New York Times. We're sending money to the BBC. We're sending money to the NPR. Screw all that. We're sending money to organizations that's probably going to pay left-wing streamers. Send money to pay streamers like me. Send money to One American News Network. Send money to the Daily Wire. Right? Sounds reasonable. Then watch how quick these Democrats that are saying, oh no, Trump has to spend the money. Okay, then we'll spend the money like that. Hey, all of you conservatives that are listening to me, go out and start some non-governmental organizations. Trump will be sending you money. Don't want to hear any complaints. And then if a Democrat administration comes in and says, hey, we don't want the NRA to be sent a bunch of government money, then we'll have a bunch of conservative justices say, oh no, you can't cancel those contracts. You can't do that. You have to continue to fund them. That's what hopefully Trump will do.
This is literally the heart of it, okay? The heart of what we're talking about. So yes, they operate under the executive branch, but that doesn't mean that like when Congress says you have to use this money for this thing and this thing doesn't get done, that's okay, right? That is impounding. That's violating the Impoundment Act. All right. So what we
Prod, do you agree the judicial system has to decide what's constitutional?
Hold on. They're literally in the process. We have plaintiff.
But we have them winning cases. We have them right.
No, they're not. They're not.
Okay,
They're losing
right, so
cases.
I'll give you cases.
I don't care. Sorry, I don't care about this right now. Hold on. I gotta focus. This is the point. We have limited amount of time left. This is the point. Congress has said that we have a certain amount of funds that we're going to be used for these processes to build this infrastructure. You can't just close down this agency and say we're not going to do it. We have money for the FAA, right? For safety checks or whatever the fuck, right? Then that money has to be used for that. So yes, he can fire those individuals, right? That you were saying before, but then he has to somehow actually accomplish that task, right? So if we are the point.
I don't believe that. Like, for example, let's say that Congress divvied out $10 million to fight childhood diabetes, and the Biden administration only spent 9.5 million of that dollar. Is that illegal? Well, Congress said they had to spend 10 million. What's the threshold for this? You see the problem with this? Now you might say, well, there's a difference between spending 9.5 million versus spending zero from the executive agency. But just saying if Congress says this money all must be spent for X purpose and all of that money wasn't spent for X purpose, then it's illegal. There seems to be some problems in there. Let's keep going. Prime's getting pretty heated here.
Is to have new safety upgrades to our planes, right? Those safety upgrades have to happen unless he actually goes through the process. And there is a process, right? A process he's used before in his first term, where he can cancel those expenditures. He's not doing that, and this is why. Hold on. Final thing.
But you're wrong.
Okay.
The president gets a 1 fiscal year delay of spending at his own discretion, and Congress can then, unless Congress. The president can temporarily it's called the deferral. So the president cannot rescind fundings, but he can for 1 fiscal year defer payment for policy reasons.
Well, I want to add to this real quick. So Prime keeps making the claim that it's unconstitutional, right? There's been a ton of lawsuits, right? First, we could go into with the dates. I have them, and we could go into which. But first, they argued they couldn't get full access to that, so that wasn't cool. Doge won that case. They said that they were not allowed to exist at all. But then Doge was formed as a reconstructed temp position to be disbanded by July 4th, 2026, and reformed of the Obama agency, so it's allowed to operate. They won that case. USA was put in place. They won that case. Admin said that Doge has to be backed, and Trump's opponent heads of each department to the left. So yeah, they've won all of these.
Doge also just lost the case because this agency that's supposed to be the most transparent agency we've ever had, right? Also wants to be exempt of FOIA requests. They just lost the case in terms of that. In terms of
okay, so again, but Prime's argument is, well, appeal to the experts. But if they're losing, what happens is you have these low-level judges that order some sort of order, then it gets appealed higher up, and Doge is winning a large amount of those cases that are getting appealed higher up. The problem is, like, let's steelman Prime's argument and say, okay, but Doge will only win 50% of those cases. Okay, but Prime's making this argument that the whole concept's illegal. And because the courts, look at what these lower courts have said. He has no idea how these things will be decided on appeal. And it turns out that I'll guarantee that these cases that Doge ended up winning upon appeal, Prime was probably like, yeah, that's right. That's illegal. These lawyers said that. These plaintiffs said that. So see, that's illegal. And then the court was like, nah, actually, that's wrong. It's illegal. So you could see sort of the problem here of just like, again, why is it that he's so animated and so many people are so animated against Doge. They're like, yeah, we admit that the FBI, the CIA, and a lot of these organizations are corrupt and have done terrible things. Yeah, we admit that there's a bunch of fraud and wasteful spending and all of that stuff. But boy, oh boy, are we knives out against Doge. Man, we hate it. Why? Where's the vitriol coming from? And the truth is, you know where it's coming from. That they're afraid that this will cut into fraud and wasteful spending that has benefited their side. That's where it's coming from. That's what's happening.
A judge saying, no, you are subject to that. You have to actually respond to his FOIA request, right? There are other cases as well. But hold on, before we get distracted with that.
Okay, so then his big thing was, they said we don't have to respond to Freedom of Information Act, and the judge said yes. What does that have anything to do with whether or not the general task that Doge is doing is illegal or not? Nothing.
Right, which doesn't actually fucking matter in terms of what the point that I'm trying to make here, right?
True.
In terms of having processes to defer, if it's a simple deferral, right? Okay, but then what happens after? Are we rehiring the CFPB, right?
Bro, please. One of the conditions of deferral is, quote, to achieve savings through efficiency.
That's hilarious.
Spending can be delayed to reduce costs to increase efficiency. The president can defer funds.
You're talking about empowerment. Yes. Yeah, that's part of...
So this means what he's doing is allowed under the empowerment.
No, because there's a process to do this, right? For instance, if he wants to cancel payment, he has...
It's called deferral.
I know
he's not even doing that.
Hold on. Yeah, I know he's not. I'm saying...
Bro, I'm just... I looked up the law.
Yeah, you're not looking... I looked up... Don't worry, because I looked the law that I cited, so I know what I'm talking about.
Unless otherwise specifically provided by law.
Yes, I'm saying, but he's not...
The president can legally withhold the funds for one fiscal year.
But he's not doing... Yes, I get that. The law allows you to do this, right? But how does it allow you to do it? You have to follow a process. And he's not actually doing that. And it involves consulting Congress. So there is a, like, for instance, there is a simple, to cancel those funds, it's a simple majority that you can get through Congress. But he's not actually going through Congress. Why is he not actually going through Congress?
You need to go through Congress.
But he does. That's the law. That's what I'm talking about. So when I say it's unconstitutional.
Now, I'll defend Prime here a little. Prime's making the argument, yes, these are within the purview of the president's power, but you still have to go through a process to do that. And Trump's gone away from that process and instead created Doge. Well, two things to say on that. One, right, it still doesn't seem to be the big constitutional crisis you're saying if you're just like, well, technically, he could do everything that he's doing, but there's just this slight process difference of how he has to do it. That is important when it comes to sort of complicated ideas of, you know, exactly how government's supposed to work, et cetera, et cetera. But the more general idea of all of this is corrupt and, you know, fraudulent or illegal doesn't seem to be fit within that sort of criticism. It's just a process criticism. Sure, Trump could do everything he's doing. He just had to do it in a slightly different way. Okay. Like, if that's going to be the argument, I'm not saying that that's true or not, because the courts are going to weigh in on whether or not Trump's allowed to do this stuff with Doge. Anyway, so that's sort of the first point. The second point is, right, that we have to wait and see what these courts say, that they might say that actually what Trump's doing is actually legal, that what Doge is doing is actually legal, and it falls within the Deferment, Disaster Impoundments Act, or he has the right to do it otherwise because it wasn't directly earmarked and this is, you know, discretionary spending, etc. So, Ben for $10 says the president wants to eliminate taxes, secure the border, orchestrate peace treaties, bring back jobs, get men out of women's sports, reduce waste and fraud, and reduce the debt. And all of it's bad, I guess. Right. If you're people that want open borders, that want biological men and women's sports, that want higher taxations, that want the war in places like Ukraine to continue, then yes, this would be bad.
What I'm saying is breaking the law. That means, hey, you're not following the law. If you're going through another process you just made up, that would be breaking the law. That's the entire point. Aren't you following this, Gibbs?
Hold on. No, I disagree here. Let me just...
Okay, no. A fair point. For deferral, the president sends a message to Congress for which they reject, modify, or approve. And it's a freeze of 1 year. I do think it's fair to say that Trump is not actually deferring anything. And the issue then is we are in a, to be fair, constitutionally nebulous position of Trump firing people isn't legally rescission or deferral.
So, okay, yes.
The argument would be that it is.
I mean,
their argument that it's not.
Well, so let me just, I'm gonna examine another portion of this because we only got a few minutes left. But we'll come right, just real quick. So Doge right now, which is has said, and this has been controversial this last week, it estimates that the government had 4.6 million credit cards and 90 million unique transactions until fiscal year 2024. All right. I've worked for several companies that have given me a company credit card, right? And I've had to answer with a receipt every time I spent money on that card. You're telling me with 4.6 million credit cards issued that there's not potential for waste in there and then we need to go in there and look it up and see, and okay, now hold on. I get that you're saying saying it's been appointed, this money's been appointed, but it's saying there's money that's been appointed for the credit cards, and we find out they're spending it buying T-bone steaks every night with the, the misses. Like, guess what? Yeah, the money might have been important proportion for these credit cards, but it's being misused.
If
that
was
not unconstitutional,
if that was the case, and we don't have oversight,
this
isn't and we don't have oversight. So, in terms
Doge is the oversight.
It's not the oversight. No, it's not the oversight.
You just don't like that Trump and Elon are at the top.
Again,
that's your big problem.
No,
because they're the ones providing
that.
That's right, Gibbs. That's exactly right. He doesn't like that. That's who's at the top of it. That's what the ultimate problem here is.
Right, because I didn't like Joe Biden either, right? I dislike most of the politicians.
I think
that's not that in itself is not the reason. It doesn't matter if I like them or not. It matters if it's legal or if it's constitutional. That's the thing I'm examining, right? So I don't give a fuck if Joe Biden or Donald Trump happens to be on top. I'm examining their actions.
Oversight. They're following the oversight.
No, they're not following the oversight. Okay, so you're not actually you're not even listening, right?
I am listening.
Okay, you don't know. You don't tell me about the Empowerment Act. Tell me about it.
I don't know. I mean, I'll get them out off the top of my head. I don't have that information.
I
mean, you didn't have the information for the other thing.
You don't know.
Peg you on
that.
that.
You don't know. Yeah, you don't know. So okay, let's.
Knowing the Impoundment Act's irrelevant to whether or not Doge itself is illegal. The Impoundment Act would be one way in which Trump would be able to accomplish some of the things that are being suggested. But if there are other ways to go about it, and Gibbs is making an argument, okay, well, you're saying all this stuff's illegal, but so far I've listed 3 cases of things that you said would have been illegal that the courts disagreed and said actually they're legal. So why should we, if you're going to issue this appeal to authority, well, legal experts say it's illegal, but then the judges that decided the cases said actually it was legal, why should we prefer your interpretation over these judges?
I mean, based off what he's just read, I mean, it sounds like he's doing fine.
No, he literally just said, hey, actually, there is a process here. He's not following the process.
I'm not talking about deferral. What I'm talking about is Congress.
Okay, I got
Trump is the head of the executive. He decides how those funds are spent.
Trump has not deferred or rescinded any funds.
Do we disagree with this statement?
Trump has not deferred or rescinded any funds.
So Congress approves funds, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me what I'm wrong. Trump decides as the head of the executive how those funds, since once they're allocated for a certain thing, are to be used. Is that correct?
Technically, you're 50-50. Congress can allocate funds for a specific use. Trump then determines how to go about that process. So, so it's a mix. Congress says, here's $100 million specifically to grow strawberries. Trump can say, okay, we got to grow strawberries. Hire me 10 people, send them to California and grow strawberries.
So, okay, that's my point. So Trump has discretion on how that money is spent to an extent, right? So it's like
to the extent that it's been approved.
So when he's sitting here gutting an agency, there's no especially when it could be in the fiscal year. Still, there's no reason for me to go, oh, it's unconstitutional. Okay, say he guts USAID, he could hire new people. He could spend that money differently. So there's no reason why it's unconstitutional.
But real quick, you made this point, and I think you're in agreement. You said so long as what was apportioned by Congress gets done.
Right.
Yes.
So Trump has to find a way to do the thing Congress says has to be done.
Okay. That would change the calculations if that does.
We don't know what he's going to do.
But right now, yes, we don't have a plan for that. Actually, we don't.
He probably does.
He's saying he's going to close down the Department of Education, right? If that spending has been approved, right? And it takes an act of Congress to actually close that down anyway, right? And which is the point that I'm talking about.
Has he?
You have to. No, he's working. He's actively saying he's working.
No.
Has
he shut down any department? Has any department been shut down?
Well, CFPB. But it's an agency. That's an agency, not a department. Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing's been shut down.
Well, the CFPB.
No,
and the USAID.
Of the congressionally approved funds.
What do you mean? Sorry,
so of the things that Congress has mentioned.
It's sort of all in the weeds here, right? Now, I will remind you that the Department of Education was created by an executive order, so it wasn't created through an act of Congress. So the argument that it would take an act of Congress to close down the Department of Education when it was created without congressional approval seems to be slightly problematic, though that could be true. I guess I could look into that and see if that's the case or not. But again, there seems to be like a lot of like this argument here that as long as Trump accomplishes the goal, well, again, that is so nebulous. Let's go back to cancer funding. $100 million for cancer research. What is the goal that must be accomplished? Because Prime's like, well, Trump doesn't have to spend that money as long as he accomplishes the goal. Curing cancer? Like, that seems so nebulous. Growing strawberries is the example they give. Okay, so if Trump spends $10,000 and says, here, we grew 24 strawberries, has he accomplished the goal? Was the goal ever outlined by Congress? We need at least 100,000 dozens of strawberries grown? And so that must be accomplished? What if he spends that money and the goal wasn't accomplished?
And it'd be done. Has Trump shut those things down?
If there's no workers to execute those things, then yes, they've been shut down.
So the answer is they have not been.
Fine. Then how are they? Okay, so the Congress appropriates, like we're going to send this amount of aid to Nigeria, or whatever, right? And there's no workers to actually send that. Look, I'm just like, go with me, right? And there's no workers to actually execute that.
Thank you,
Well, then how has
Brimstone,
that
for the
not been
20
canceled?
bucks.
Stop.
Says,
We're
I
not talking about
appreciate you,
hypotheticals.
Rob.
The
Thank
question was, has Trump actually shut any of these things down?
Shut any of these things down? Are you talking about in terms of a contract or operations?
Anything that Congress has mandated be done, has Trump ordered shut down completely?
Yeah, well, no, because
Is it yes or no? I don't know. Don't get
no,
mad.
no, because you're moving this
I'm
around.
not at all.
Okay,
I'm
well, then,
asking you.
Sure. If you're talking about in terms of what
No, stop. I'm not if.
the CFPB has been shut down. I've already said that before.
Okay, now thank you for finally answering.
I said that before.
Okay,
multiple
and you
times.
said it's not a department, it's an agency. Now, my follow-up question is, did Congress apportion funds for the specific task of CFPB to engage in certain practices?
Yes.
Okay, so the issue then is, one, was CFPB actually shut down? It has not been. A judge has blocked that. Although it's fair to say Trump wants to.
A
whistleblower is now testifying that they still want to do it. However, it's been.
That would be the unconstitutional.
And he's been
act.
following he follows the law.
The
He
un-
follows the court's
Well,
decisions when they do it.
Yeah. So if shutting it down would be the thing that's the problem that I'm against. If you're saying that a court stopped him from doing the bad thing, well, then I agree with the court. But I'm still have a problem with the bad thing. So it doesn't invalidate anything that I just said.
No, Congress did not apportion funds for CFPB.
In terms of if it takes it from the Treasury, we already talked about this.
Congress did not appropriate funds for
so then
CFPB.
you
yeah, but if
absolutely
it
shut
takes
him
it from the
That's why I thought you said it wasn't a department, because you were specifically mentioning that
No,
Congress
but,
doesn't fund it.
but it gets funded indirectly. Well, we mentioned this at the very start. We were talking about the funding of the CFPB, right? CFPB has a special way of funding it, right? But the
funding
principle
method has been challenged because it's unconstitutional.
Yeah, but from the banks. Yeah, they've been trying to. The banks that have been trying to be been regulated, right?
Let's go.
They don't like it, and so they've been challenging it on all grounds.
All right, let's just slow down. We're trying to get to the truth here.
Sure.
So when I asked,
This argument's out in the weeds, but I get what Tim's doing. He's like, okay, I asked specific questions. Has Congress funded this? You're like, yeah. And I asked, has it been shut down? And you're like, yeah. And it's like, well, it turns out neither of those have been true. Prime does have an argument that's like, well, Trump's trying to shut it down, but I think the counter argument to that is, well, Trump's allowed to try to do those things, and then the court could say you can't do that, and then Trump could do a different policy. For example, did Prime freak out when Joe Biden tried to forgive student loan money, and the court said you can't do that, and so then Joe Biden tried to use a different tactic to forgive student loan money? Remember that? And all the left said, well, that's legitimate. That's okay. Because he still followed the court order. He just tried to go around it and forgive student loan money in a different way. Nug, it's all right, man. I don't take anything personally on these sorts of things. I mean, there would be things I'd take personally. Like if you said that my teeth weren't immaculate. Look at this. But no hard feelings. Don't care. It was fun. Good content. All right, let's keep going. We got a couple more minutes.
and you said CFPB is an agency, not a department. I thought the point you were trying to make contextually was this one may be shut down, but doesn't qualify because Congress didn't apportion funds for it. The question was, if
Congress created it.
If Congress says this money is for this thing, Trump must have that thing happen. He controls how that thing does happen, but it has to happen. CFPB is not given funds by Congress, which has been challenged, so it's nebulous. This is hard. Hard to adjudicate.
Okay, fine, sure. I disagree that it's any different in terms of like how our government actually works, but we can just move on to USAID. If USAID is getting its funds directly from Congress, then it counts for USAID, right? Or any other department. Like it's literally the same principle. But if you want to talk about the technicality, because again, yes, the CFPB is protected because they didn't when it was created.
Again, think of Prime's, like, let's use USAID here for a second. Think of Prime's argument in totality here. Like, I don't know if he's just so scattershot that he's just trying to, he's spurging out a little and he's just trying to find any argument to argue against or what. But if we take at face value what he's saying, all right, you could stop. Congress says, here's some money, go do a thing. Here's some money, USAID, go do a thing. And so therefore, Trump can only withhold that money if Trump does that thing. Okay, then what was the goal that Congress funded USAID for? What was the goal? And who gets to determine whether or not it was accomplished? Now, I have no clue. I have no clue in the congressional funding for an organization like USAID what their stated purpose was for what that money was supposed to accomplish, for what USAID was supposed to do. My guess is it's probably super vague for the promotion of democratic values around the world. Something like that. Well, who's to say whether or not that I think USAID is doing the opposite of that by interfering in elections like in places like Poland and Romania. So therefore, by shutting it down, you're accomplishing the goal. So I don't understand. I feel like Prime gets himself in trouble saying, well, Trump's allowed to do it if he's trying to accomplish the goal. what is democracy promotion? We may all vehemently disagree on what that looks like. If I think that the actual agency of USAID is harming democracy around the world, then would it not be a form of democracy promotion to eliminate it? Couple more minutes.
It was structured in a way so it couldn't easily be shut down. Apparently, that was wrong. Well, if you go through an unconstitutional manner, of course you can easily shut it down. But in any case,
So if he totally guts USAID and puts like Trump AID in there instead or whatever, I'm just making something up, and it does the exact same job, like wouldn't that fulfill the obligation to spend the money on that thing?
yeah, it might.
So then it's not unconstitutional. You got it.
If
You can replace it with something.
if it's will it be replaced?
I mean,
no, because
maybe.
the point here was to shrink the government. So what you're telling me now is that now they're not going to shrink the
to make it
government.
more efficient.
No. They like to shrink the federal government. They've talked about that many times. Let's not bullshit that. Okay, so it's not about replacing this with something else, right?
more
That's one
efficient
thing.
thing.
Yeah, but they're not doing that. So stop making that up.
So I think,
That's interesting because Prime's just conceded what my argument, and I don't know why I'm the only person I've heard saying this, the only person in the country. If the argument is Trump can't stop spending the money, but he's allowed to spend it, he doesn't have to give it to these particular organizations, then just create conservative NGOs. That's simple. You don't have to eliminate USAID. We're just going to take the money and give it to the Orthodox Church. We're going to take the money and give it to the NRA. We're going to take the money and help interfere in elections across the globe for right-wing populist candidates. There you go. Then we'll ask Congress, do you want to shut this money down? Democrats, you want to shut it down? It's up to you. You guys could then say, if the court says that Trump's not allowed to shut it down, that's what Trump should do, direct it all to populist movements and say, hey, I actually wanted to shut this money down, but they're saying we have to spend it. So instead of spending on organizations that are antithetical to what me, the people of this country, et cetera, believe, instead of sending it to NGOs to help facilitate illegals coming into the country, we're going to send it to NGOs that want to go to the border to prevent illegals from coming into the country. Instead of sending it to NGOs that want to take away First Amendment rights, we're going to say it to NGOs that go after foreign countries that want to attack our businesses like X. Instead of sending it to NGOs that want to criticize the Second Amendment, we're going to send it to NGOs that want to protect the Second Amendment. I don't know why I haven't heard other people saying this. And then, if you say, hey, that's what the courts say we have to do, so that's what we're going to do, now we'll go back to Congress and say, hey, Democrats, you cool with this? Or would you like the spending to just stop? Because if not, no problem. We'll keep spending. No problem. And I'll bet real quick they'll be like, you can't send money to groups like that. You can't do it. And the same legal experts that are saying like, oh, no, Trump has to continue sending this money to NGOs that benefit left-wing causes would say that's absurd. The executive can't send it to partisan organizations like that. They can't do that. And Prime seems to be saying, yeah, sure, Trump could replace USAID with Trump aid. Fine, great. Then let it play out through the courts. If the courts rule for Trump, then Primecayes admits, I was wrong. I've already admitted that the status quo has a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. I'm glad that Doge will be looking into it, even if I think sometimes Doge over-exaggerates how much they're claiming the fraud to have found. And if he's right, and the courts say, yeah, you can't do that, then Trump sends it to a bunch of right-wing organizations, and Prime says, great, fantastic. Legally, that's the way that it should be done.
I'll just give my final thoughts. Largely, when we say things like, if a department has one bad person, don't gut it. If a department has a mass majority of corruption, gut it. The issue is largely just how we see the world in these institutions. And it's why I believe that there's not going to be reconciliation. There's not going to be a coming together of either side. My view, especially reading now about CFPB, is I was, I'm learning a lot here as Doge does its thing. Notably that
we're just going to end Tim giving his thoughts here. Not that Tim's not important or whatever, but Brimstone, thank you for the $20. As I appreciate you, Rob. I appreciate you too, Brimstone. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I do apologize that I was unable to go through the entire debate. I hear my man Hank is up downstairs. Normally, I don't stream on Saturdays. I have to go into work later today, so I definitely want to hang out with my son. If you missed the beginning of the show, he was up at a picnic and stuff last night, running around like a madman, and he got so tired that then he couldn't sleep. And so we were up until the wee hours of the morning. And I kind of thought he would be sleeping until noon. But since I hear him up downstairs, I'm probably going to go hang out with him before I go into work. For those that don't know, when I go into work, I'm there 24/7. I'm not always clocked in, so I'm able to stream sometimes when I have to clock out, but I still have to be on the premises. And unfortunately, what ends up happening then is I can't be with my family 24/7 for like 4 days in a row. So I like to take the weekends to hang out with my family if I can. And that's why I normally don't stream on those weekends. Having said that, hopefully then tomorrow evening, Monday evening, Tuesday evening, barring anything crazy happening at my work, you'll see me around 7 p.m. streaming. So right around those times, I'll be streaming live to hopefully at least YouTube. I'm going to try to set it up so I can stream to Rumble and X as well. We're going to try to see if I can figure it out on how to do it with my phone. So it should be good, but I hope you appreciated this. I thought it would be something interesting to look at. Overall, if I have to give grades, my bias definitely showed through in my review of this debate, where I think it's quite obvious that I am more on Gibbs' side, and to that effect, more on Tim Pool's side as well, on what I thought about these issues. Performatively, I thought Gibbs didn't get to speak as much as I would have liked to have heard him, because Tim tends to sort of argue a little more as a moderator than I would prefer as a moderator. I would let it up to sort of the participants more. But I thought Gibbs did fine. Prime, I think it's sort of, he didn't do terrible in the portions that I saw. As far as I heard people saying that he was spurging out to the point of nonsense. I guess a little towards the end you could see that. I think that there are problems, though, with the way that he's sort of approaching this debate. It's clear that he's someone who's probably spent a week or two researching these specific things, the Doge tracker website, the impoundment clause, and all of that sort of stuff. But I think that when you break down, he's doing this thing that you see a lot of people do, which is they argue on each specific thing that you're wrong about each specific thing, and then they lose sight of what that means in the bigger picture. Like, for example, like, oh yeah, Trump could just change it to Trump aid as long as he's spending it, it's okay. Like, well, how does that negatively affect arguments you've made? Or, oh, it's illegal and we're going to appeal to authority, but we've already had judges that have said that so many of these things are legal. Thanks so much, Aldo Medina. I really appreciate the $20. I do. And did I get... Yes, I think I got all the others. I really appreciate that, Aldo. I really do. So I'm glad you guys appreciate this. Look, so the last thing I'll say on this is it was a fun debate. I think that it's an interesting topic worth talking about. My gut feeling is that the majority of people that have a visceral reaction against Doge are because they don't like Trump and they don't like Musk, and they're aware that a lot of stuff that they're going to find out that was waste fraud, the American people will be disgusted by. And that benefits their side mightily. The ever-flowing spigot of money that's going to places like academic institutions that then is overwhelmingly radically left-wing that we are all forced to fund is absurd. Funding these NGOs that then do things like help facilitate illegals getting to this country. This shit will not be popular amongst American citizens. But so many of these lefties do like that. And so what they're really mad about is that this stuff will eventually be found out. That's what they're really upset about, in my estimation. And so that's why you're seeing, like, this idea of, well, we're just concerned about the legal constitutional processes. I bet Primecayes has spent more time arguing about Doge, which he's literally saying, actually, Trump could completely do all the things he's doing. He just had to go through the deferments clause to do it, right? And so it's a process issue. I'll bet Prime spent more time on this already than he did with things like illegal FISA warrants to spy on Trump's campaign and Trump's presidency. Something of a far greater impact. But I bet Prime didn't have much. He probably was like, yeah, that's bad anyways. And that's what you see of somebody. They're concerned about constitutional processes, but only when they could use it to attack their opponents. They don't really care when it's directed at them. So that's my point on it. As far as donations, I have to say I've been pleasantly surprised with the amount of support I've been getting, particularly this month. The only month that's rivaled this month was the election month, which you expect as a streamer that streams politics when the election's occurring, that you're going to have more people watching, because even people that traditionally aren't concerned about politics are concerned that week, that month, the month of the election. So I think that the amount of viewers that I'm getting and the financial support that I'm getting from you all is really impressive. And it really, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you so much. It means a lot. People ask me all the time, what would it take? Because I work like 80 to 90 hours a week. What would it take for me to do this full time? Well, I can tell you what full-time streaming would look like for me. At least 5 days a week, I would stream at least 4 hours a day. So that would be, we would have a block, like maybe it would be like 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. every night. I would be streaming 4 hours. It would allow me to do more events in real life. It would allow me to have more production value, to be able to get bigger name guests, to be able to doing more debates, to be able to doing more research behind the scene to make me even more effective as a debater and as a communicator when it comes to these sorts of things. I think the show would be phenomenal. I think I would be one of the best out there if I was able to do this full time, like you see so many of these left wing streamers are able to do. But what would it financially take for me to do that? I refuse to put my family in a risky financial situation for what is tantamount at this point to me to be a hobby. It's the equivalent of, I have a friend who's like in his 40s who has kids that decided he was going to quit his job and was going to travel the country in this band that he was in. Yeah, you can't do that, man. Sorry, you can't do that because you have priorities. You can't take a risk like that. Or maybe you can, but I can't. I can't do that. I can't jeopardize my family in that way. And so the two things it would require is I would have to at least make as much money streaming as I'm making now in my current job, which would probably mean that I would have to make around $100,000 a year, even though I only make about 21 bucks an hour because I'm working 80 to 90 hours a week. The money sort of adds up. In addition to that, I get insurance and other things like that for my family through work. So that would have to be met. So that's number one. Number two, though, is even at that, even if you could somehow do that and I was getting $8,000 a month streaming, it's like, okay, that would be enough money to quit streaming. Most of that money is going to come from places like YouTube. And YouTube could go, okay, you're demonetized or your channel's canceled. And then all of a sudden you're screwed. Then what? I just look at my wife and kid and go, hey, sorry, no money this month. We're going to lose the house. So I know it's something that people have been direct messaging me a lot lately, like, hey, your show's been doing better. Have you considered quitting your job or anything like that? It's not in the realm of being to that point where that's a serious consideration for me at this point. I'm just nowhere near where I would need to be comfortable for my family. We'll keep working. Maybe someday I'll get there. But to be honest, my goal of doing this channel was never for this to be my full-time job. I think I'd be phenomenal at it. I think I would love it. I really do. But that was never my goal. My goal was that this is something that I like doing. I have fun doing this. I think that I'm authentic. I think that I'm fun to watch. I hope that I'm informative to watch. I think I'm pretty good, particularly when it comes to debating people and things of that nature. And I hope other people feel that as well. I have more and more people every day that are watching, so I'm happy for that. But it was never, the primary concern was never, oh, I just want to make a ton of money or be the biggest streamer in the world or anything like that. That was never the primary concern. I am a dirty, dirty capitalist. And so if I could make more money doing this than my other job because I like doing this so much, absolutely, I would jump on board and do that. But I'm also a realist and I understand that, I'm not 20 without a girlfriend or a wife or kids. And so I could afford to take riskier decisions. I'm 40, man. It's no midlife crisis time to, all of a sudden jump on those things. So I do appreciate you all. I did have a Patreon. Almost no one donated to. But Patreon would fall into the same category as YouTube where they could snap their fingers and cancel you as well. Maybe I'll start putting those. I have Patreon. I think I still have it. I don't think anyone donates to it. Let me see. And I feel bad because I never called out I would have to do better anyways. Let's see here. Let's see. Is this? Give me 1 second. We'll check this on Patreon. Okay, maybe I've signed in on the wrong email here. Give me a second. This is stupid. Wait to be here, Patreon. I want to sign in on a different account. Oh, here we go. Log out. There we go. Log in. So here is my Patreon, which I have no. I don't know how to put that link out. Anyways, I'm Robert Knorr on Patreon. Somewhere there's a link, I assume, that I could send to people. But there you go. I'll work on that. That's something I'll have to look at. But Patreon sucks because being conservative, a lot of these platforms screw you over in ways that. So, anyways, that's the story with as far as my channel's going. We're gonna continue to grow. Maybe it results in me being able to have less hours at work. But the problem with healthcare is, in order to have less hours at work, they have to hire someone, which for 2 years now, it's been, we have a house that someone needs to be there 24/7, and there's only 2 of us workers that work in that house. That means at a minimum, I have to be working half of the week at a minimum. But the problem is, what if the other guy takes a week off vacation? Now I have to be there for 10 days straight. What if I have trainings that I have to take? Well, then on my day off, I have to drive out to the office and do trainings. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. And, I'm getting to the point in my life, my son's about to start T-ball, and I'm not going to miss his games. It's not happening. So my work's going to have to find something that works out where I'm going to be like, look, man, I can't do this. I'm 40 years old. I've given you so many hours. My hours are insane. The amount of hours that I'm working every year. So, what if I partnered with Andrew and Jake more? Andrew is fantastic. Jake's really cool. I've talked with him a couple times, done his show. I will be doing his show more. Andrew is fantastic. He's helped me out a lot, like a ton. And I will partner with both of them more. But I don't want to ask them too much. That's the truth of it. I'm not some person coming out here asking for charity. Screw all that. I'd rather work the 80, 90 hours a week. If they want to work with me because they feel that my talent and they like what I'm doing and that it will be a relationship that will help them and their channels as well, I'm all good with that. But I'm not going to beg or anything like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they're forcing me to beg or anything. They have so much going on. So much going on. They shouldn't have to take time to deal with little old me or anything like that. So I mean, that's how I feel about it. I will reach out to them more, but they're so damn busy. They're as busy as me, if not busier, and they're just doing content, So, well, yeah, Andrew said kind words to me. Andrew's fantastic. I like Andrew a lot, but yeah, it's something we'll see. One other bad news that I think that it's important to say for regular viewers of me. It might be the last day for my hat. It might be the last day for my hat on stream. I'm sorry to say it. Look at that bald head. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I gotta get a haircut this week. Ugh. Hey, really fat, who's this fat conservative? Why don't you take your hat off? You're probably bald. You're right. You got me. My wife's tired of this hat. And so we were at Walmart yesterday, and she's like, why don't you buy a hat? And there's nice hats. There's a Carhartt hat. I like Pittsburgh Penguins, Steelers, Pirates. She's like, get a hat like that. And I found this exact same hat for $2. What a steal. And my wife was like, what are you doing? Why are you getting the same hat? It's so dumb. So I didn't. I got a different hat. It's the exact same hat, except it's black. So there you go. I'll now have this hat that'll be black. Probably the next time you see me. And then I bought the exact same pair of shoes I have, these Skechers, but instead of black, they're gray. So I've changed shoes from black to gray and hat from gray to black. Midlife crisis, baby. Exact same pair of shoes, exact same hat, just different colors. I'm excited. I'm very excited for this new chapter of my life. Gray shoes, black hat instead of gray hat, black shoes. I think it'll be tremendous. It's going to be, this new stage of my life is going to be fantastic. I can't wait. I think that you all will see the difference. I think you'll see the difference. Though I do wonder if black hat, right? The old cowboy movies, that means I have to be the villain, which I'm happy to be the villain. That's no problem there. I could be the heel, you know? So yeah, that's what's going on with my headwear. So if you see me at the black hat and you wonder what's going on, that's what's happening. And I did tell people at the beginning of the show, today I started a 48-hour fast. So I'm water only for today and tomorrow. And then I don't know if it will be immediately following that or I'm going to wait a week or two. I am going to a 30-day, basically carnivore diet because one of my followers suggested that and doing some stretches that he's recommended might help me with my back. So I'm committed to trying to get better shape anyways, being a fat, out of shape sack of shit. So I figured let's start with the hat and the fast, and then we'll go from there. So hope you all enjoyed this. Special shout out to Tim Pool for allowing me to use his video. Shout out to Admiral Gibbs and Primecayes. Look, regardless of what you thought of either of their performances in that debate, I think they're both decent people, and I couldn't be happier for them to get an opportunity to do a show like Tim Pool's. There is no part of me whatsoever that wants to gatekeep and think like only people that I agree with or think are talented should be able to do this. It's always impressive. Or impressive's not the word. I'm always happy when I see people that I've interacted with get a shot like that. I think that's great. I really do. And so I wish nothing but the best for Admiral Gibbs and Primecayes. You should check out their channels. I know they're both on YouTube, and Admiral Gibbs is spelled Gibbs. Primecayes, I always call him Primecayes, but it's Primecayes. And you can find both of their channels easily on YouTube. So if you liked anything that you heard either of them say, or if you just wanted to pop in to just say, hey, congratulations getting on Tim Pool's show, that'd probably mean a lot to them. So kudos to both of them for getting on the show, even if I don't agree with either of them completely. I don't agree with anyone completely, so kudos to them. Ben, thanks so much for $2. Says, I'm your Slavov Zizek. I don't know if I should talk. I'm doing it bad. He's got that nasal thing. I like Zizek. Like, when it comes to those, you need to understand ideology behind those. And I'm sorry, repetition all times. You think I'm full of shit, but that's how Zizek talks. Zizek, quite the humorous chap. Check out the movie A Pervert's Guide to Ideology. That's a Zizek movie that you might like. So, all right, we'll probably see you tomorrow around 7 unless work gets involved. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this stream. As always, have a good one.